Hmm? Ah! Oh.
She wouldn't even kill me. She just left. She didn't even care enough to cut off my head or set me on fire. I mean, is that too much to ask? You know? Some little sign that she cared? It was that truce with Buffy that did it. Drew said I'd gone soft. Wasn't demon enough for the likes of her. I told her it didn't mean anything. I was thinking of her the whole time. She didn't care. So we got to Brazil, and she was just different. I gave her everything. Beautiful jewels, beautiful dresses with beautiful girls in them, but nothing made her happy. And she would flirt. I caught her on a park bench making out with the chaos demon. Have you ever seen a chaos demon? They're all slime and antlers. They're disgusting.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Jim.
And I'm Kara. This episode, we're going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 8, Lover's Walk, directed by David Semmel and written by Jane Espenson and Dan Bever. The original air date for this one was November 24th of 1998, so the Tuesday before Thanksgiving that year. And Lover's Walk was actually nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Sound Editing in a Series.
And you may have recognized the voice you heard earlier of our good friend Jim, back for another episode to share his enthusiasm with all of our listeners. Welcome back, Jim.
I do tend to get a little enthusiastic, don't I?
Yeah.
Look, I'm just telling you, Spike's in this episode, so just gonna have to deal with it. I apologize just right out of the gate. I just apologize because I got to get all my Spike out in this one because... Spoiler alert, it's his only episode in season 3. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, seriously. What were you doing in the fall of 1998, in November of 98, Jim?
So I actually looked this up. I journal quite often, and November of 1998, I was in the midst of student teaching. So I was crying a lot and staying up a lot, and because I was dealing with second graders at the time. So it was but I only had 2 more weeks to go after Thanksgiving until I was done.
Nice.
So I was just about to start. I was just about to start the path to being an actual human being after that.
I remember that particular Thanksgiving so well because it was the first Thanksgiving of when I was in law school living in New York City, and the corridor between Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston is like the busiest travel corridor in America, especially in the couple of days leading up to Thanksgiving. And I remember it was a crunch time at school, and I couldn't go home on Tuesday night to watch Buffy. And I knew that on Wednesday, I was going to go straight from classes to the bus station. I took a Greyhound because I travel in style from New York to Boston. And the lady sitting next to me had tiny Tupperware containers of sardines as her snack for the whole bus ride.
Oh my God.
And I called my mom from the payphone. This is so retro. From the payphone at the law school to ask her to tape Buffy for me so that I could watch it when I got home for Thanksgiving. And she was like very confused by the request. You know, she was like, oh, I don't know. I have it set up to tape Oprah. And I'm like, they're not at the same time. And so I had to like walk her through the whole process of taping. And it didn't work out. She didn't tape Buffy, but fortunately some family friends who live nearby did. And so I went to their house to watch.
It's funny because I was thinking how strange it is now to have actual like network television shows that aren't like repeats or random like the week of Thanksgiving anyway. So
Yeah.
it's funny. I remember thinking like, gosh, this must be close to Thanksgiving.
I looked, and the next episode, The Wish, that we're covering next time, didn't air for like 2 or 3 weeks. So there was a little break after Lover's Walk. And yeah, I remember Thanksgiving was always the best day for like TV show marathons. This was
Oh yeah.
pre-DVDs, so you needed
DVDs, yeah.
to like hope that a show that you liked was going to have a marathon on one of the cable channels. It was like USA, TBS, FX, TLC, like whatever. And so
MTV, because this
uh,
is when I would watch my Real World or
yeah, the
my
real world.
whatever the one was where they were driving in the little
Oh, Road
RV.
Rules.
Road
Yeah.
Rules, yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, so there would always be an X-Files marathon, and in later years, a Buffy marathon and a Star Trek marathon, and my brothers and I would, like, jockey for who got to control the television at which time and for what episodes, and we would flip back and forth during commercials. It's
So
all
funny.
it's like it's still happening, it's so clear in my mind. Um
I was in my first semester of 5th grade
Oh, so
in
tiny
November
and
of
cute!
1998. And I remember this one because it was one of the first episodes that I got to watch, like, live,
Mhm.
and I didn't have to sneak it. I had convinced my mom, like, I'm in 5th grade. I'm gonna be in middle school next year, Mom. I can watch Buffy. And I loved this episode, and I remember very clearly loving Spike, and my mom being like, "Well, maybe a little bit longer until you watch Buffy."
Maybe not the drunk guy who talks about
Yeah,
torturing his girlfriend to get her back. That might not be appropriate for a
yeah,
5th grader.
maybe not. But I was kind of smitten by him from the beginning, and I don't know what that says about me, but here we are.
Yeah, well, you're not alone in liking a bad boy.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
classic for a reason.
It's
So,
true.
let's go back and see what was happening in the news. The number 1 song in the US was "Lately" by Divine, and I know you're all shocked, but the number 1 song in the UK was "Believe" by Cher,
Oh
if
my
you can
gosh.
believe that.
Huh.
US box office, Rugrats movie number 1, Enemy of the State number 2, Waterboy 3, and A Bug's Life 4.
Wow. Now that's nostalgic. I still have somewhere in storage my orange VHS copy of the Rugrats movie.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's fantastic. And let's see. And in the news during this time, Oxygen Media, the cable television and online company formed by Geraldine Laybourne, the former president of Nickelodeon, had entered into a partnership with Oprah Winfrey and the Carsey Werner Mondabach Company to create a cable television network aimed at women.
This was, like,
And
big news.
what was
They were
that?
like, "Nobody's ever
Was
aimed media at women before." Like, it was huge.
was that the O
Yeah.
network? Was
Yeah,
okay.
Oxygen, I
it
think.
became Oxygen Network, and then later
That's right.
yeah. Geraldine Laybourne went to my college, and as did her daughter,
Ooh.
and I went to college with her daughter, so she's weirdly a celebrity in my mind, even though she's not really a celebrity because she's, like,
That
behind
makes
the
sense.
scenes, but yeah.
It's a pretty big role. Um, and let's see, Bill Gates, the Microsoft Corporation chairman, and his wife Melinda gave $20 million to the Seattle Public Library System, and the gift was believed to be one of the largest donations from individuals to a public library system. Mr. Gates, I guess, was this at that time, had a net worth
Yeah.
estimated at $40 billion, making him the wealthiest person in the United States. He has been criticized for not being more generous with his wealth, but has said he planned to increase his philanthropy. To Today, Bill Gates' net worth is now estimated at $145 billion, and Melinda Gates' net worth is estimated at $12 billion. Whew,
Yeah.
that is sizable.
I thought the
Goodness.
article was hilarious because they were talking about Bill Gates as if nobody would know who he was. They
Yeah,
were
he,
like,
by
Bill
the way, the
Gates, who
Microsoft
founded
Corporation.
Microsoft. Yeah.
Gosh, that's funny. Then we have Dr. Kevorkian charged with murder. On November 25th of 1998, he surrendered in Michigan for administering a lethal injection to a terminally ill man who wished to die. He also videotaped that euthanasia, and it was broadcast on nationwide television on November 22nd of 1998. Ugh. There's a
Crazy.
reference that I remember recently. I'd Kevorkian him with my bear. Oh, it's from Grey's Anatomy.
Oh,
I can't. Yeah, I think it's Meredith at one point says, Okay, I'd Kevorkian her with my bare hands at some point.
that
What
is
a
a
crazy
strange
story that was.
use. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he was an activist. He did the broadcast intending to get arrested. He wanted the publicity, but it's still hard to wrap your head around deciding to broadcast that.
I think this was my 7th grade debate topic.
Euthanasia?
Yeah, euthanasia. I
Seventh grade
won.
debate.
It was
There's
fun.
I'm just looking at my school that I teach at. There is no way that would happen in our 7th grade classroom, even today.
Well,
So,
we were the special nerdy kids off to the side at my school. Oh man.
all right. So now we get to talk about the fun and joy of cigarettes. This is right at the time where this big cigarette settlement was reached with all the 4 biggest companies and officials of 8 states drafting a nationwide plan to resolve claims over health care costs stemming from cigarette smoking. This is like the first domino in a lot of dominoes in which smoking, I guess, handed the baton off to vaping and such. But it would cost tobacco $206 billion over 25 years, and this is what changed like cigarette advertising at that point. For the 46 states accepted the $206 billion plan to resolve the action filed against cigarette makers to recover Medicaid money spent on diseases relating to smoking. This also coincided with cigarette makers raising prices. The agreement was on November 20th, where they came up with the limited advertisement and the payment of $206 billion. 3 days later, the companies announced a 45 cents a pack increase as a result of said $206 billion tobacco settlement. I don't smoke, but I definitely would say that 45 cents has launched into like dollars and dollars
Yeah.
across the country, because cigarettes, I think
I
back then
remember.
were $2 or $3, and now they're around 10. So
Yeah.
that was a big deal. Big deal.
I
A big deal.
remember my
That's
grandpa complaining about this around Thanksgiving. So there you go.
Yeah. Yep. It was in the zeitgeist at the time. It was unprecedented, and everybody was, reading these disclosures that came out of the various lawsuits where, tobacco executives knowingly and blatantly were marketing to children, and they knew how poisonous tobacco and cigarettes were, and it's yeah. It's all stuff that people now just take for granted as known, but at the
yeah.
time, there were still people who were like, "No, cigarettes are good for you, right?" Like
Yeah.
this was
It's
when
like
that
doctors
shifted.
used to recommend them.
Yeah.
I
Ugh.
think to the movie The Insider, I think, was based on all of this with Russell Crowe and
Yeah.
I think uh,
And what's his name?
not De
Pacino.
Niro, Pacino was
Pacino.
in that. Yeah, I think that was from this too as well.
Dang.
And then on November 24th, something I guess that we're super familiar with now, although back then a lot of these communication deals weren't as known. American Online agreed to buy, here's a blast from the past, Netscape Communications for $4.2 billion. Looking ahead at
Jeez.
internet as a factor in this. So, of course, that has rolled over several other times to where we are today. But man, Netscape was so American Online versus Netscape, right?
Yeah, that was a
Mm,
huge deal. Such a
man.
fun time in our country. The mergers and acquisitions were starting. The tech boom was starting. Just a
Yep.
wild time.
Gosh.
Speaking of wild times, let's get into it. The return of our favorite platinum punk, Mr. Spike,
Nice.
and all of his many, many monologues in this episode.
Oh my gosh.
He has a lot of them. Jim, why don't you start us off?
Well, gee, since you segued right into Spike, let's start. So listen, Spike is great in every episode that he's in, but this episode always has stood out as being really special because he does all of the things. He is everything.
Mhm.
He's drunk, he's evil, he's sad, he's predatory, he's erratic, he's abusive, he's murderous, he's torturous, he's hilarious, he's mopey, he's weepy, he's suicidal, he's friendly, he's forceful, he's childlike, and then ultimately satisfied in the end, which left us all satisfied because it truly, you take Spike out of this episode and it's one of the saddest episodes of
Yeah,
any
everything else
Buffy
is
show.
sad.
Oh yeah.
And you have Spike just ripping out the core of all of these Sunnydale kids. But
Ugh.
there's so much about this, and I mean, I'm not going to go through the point by point of Spike through this episode because I have a feeling we're all going to do that here. But I just want to talk about his entrance.
Mhm.
The entrance of him, very exactly the same entrance as he had in season 2,
Mhm.
episode 3.
School hard.
School hard. Yeah, he crashes through the Sunnydale sign in School Hard, and he steps out, and you see that big boot, and it pans up to Spike, and he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and he lights the cigarette, and he kind of turns to face the camera, and he says, "Home sweet home." Whereas in this episode, he crashes through the same sign, the door opens, he flies out of the car amidst beer bottles and cans, chuckles, is clearly drunk, and again says home sweet home, and that immediately sets him off on his path of, I don't know what you would even call his path in this. It's not really destruction, although it kind of is, but man, and I'll pass the baton off to you guys, but Spike, we can talk about how Spike got his permanent job and spoilers, but if this wasn't the sealer for JW, I don't know what was.
Yeah, it's a brilliant
Oh yeah.
performance by James Marsters in this episode. Like I mentioned, he has several monologues where the other person in the scene is barely doing anything, and he is filling the screen with his personality and his
Mhm.
story, and you really believe how sad he is about Drusilla. Like, at one point he says, "Oh, I'm so unhappy." It's so melodramatic. He manages to weave some poetry in there when he's, like, talking to Buffy and Angel, and he talks about how love is blood and how they'll love each other until it kills them both, and it
Mhm.
it's the thing about Spike that makes him so interesting is that there's these layers. There's this top layer where he's this, like, Sid Vicious, Billy Idol kind of rocker dude, and he's violent, and he's brash, and he pretends to be kind of from, like, a working class background, but underneath it, there's a really smart strategic thinker. There is strategist, that's the word I was trying to think of, a very smart
Mhm.
strategist, and there's a poet, and we're starting to see it. We know that he truly loves Drusilla. We have seen plenty of
Mhm.
evidence that his love for Drusilla is real. Remember, the judge was like, "You 2 are tainted with love," you
Oh
know?
yeah.
That he has these strong feelings. He's always been funny. He's thoughtful. Like, at the end of season 2, when he makes that deal with Buffy, and she's like, "Why would you wanna make a deal with me?" He's like, "I like the world," and he has a whole speech about why he wants the world to not be
Mhm.
sucked into hell, and it's like, most of the
He's a
vampires we meet
romantic.
yeah, most of the vampires we meet outside of the sort of main characters are like, "Want to eat blood, ugh." They don't have a lot of nuance, but Spike is just like nuance after nuance after
Well,
nuance
and
after nuance.
that's such a
It's
complex
true.
take too. It
Yeah.
really is. It seems very simple, but we're so used to in shows. When I say shows like this, I mean obviously Buffy and Angel to an extent aren't your typical sort of like Monsters of the Week episodes. But the take of not wanting to destroy, being a baddie in the episode and not wanting to destroy the world, having that nuance of I
Mhm.
just enjoy the havoc I can create in this world. Why would I want it to go away? It sounds silly, but it's such when you say nuance, it's just such to me, that's super complex for a TV show.
Yeah, I
even
think
for a
so.
movie these days. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wonderful villain because you can't help but enjoy him, right? There's
Oh
nobody I've
yeah.
never heard anybody who's ever watched Buffy who was like, "I don't get why everyone loves Spike." Like, that never is a
Mhm.
sentence that happens. Everybody's like, "Oh, well, yeah, Spike." Because he's hilarious and evil and
Yeah.
cute and romantic. Like,
Mhm.
it and we were joking around, about Bad Boys and how we, every girl goes through her bad boy phase, and I think if you watched Spike at a impressionable age, it's gonna be hard to not go after bad boys. Like,
Uh-huh.
he is
Great,
hilarious.
great time developmentally to fall for somebody like Spike at the age of 11.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Just to
Yeah.
really just send you in the wrong direction for your teenage years. Make sure
This
you
was also
think leather jackets equal personality, all that stuff that happens to teenage girls. Yeah.
This was also right around the time where I became absolutely obsessed with the movie Stand By Me. And I loved River Phoenix's character Chris, but there was also something about Kiefer Sutherland as Ace that I was like, he's scary but also intriguing. Like
Yeah.
it was an interesting time. But God, I love Spike. He's just such a jolt of energy to the screen. Like I love season 3. I love every episode we've covered so far, but there's also a part of me that feels like I had been sleeping through them until we get to this episode. Because Spike is just intoxicating to watch. And I love this episode. This might be one of my top 5 of the entire series. Like,
I'm with
it's
you on that.
just
Absolutely for me. Yes.
so good and one of my favorite episodes of television, period. And that's because I think it's such a good almost character study of Spike. Like you mentioned, Jim, there are so many things that he experiences and portrays in this episode, and it's perfect. We see all of these sides to him, and not only that, but we also get to see him working alongside Angel and Buffy, which is not something that happens much at all. And it's just so fun to watch him clock them so accurately, where everybody else knows, like all the viewers, we know they're still in love, but the fact that it took Spike to point it out to both of them has to hurt a little bit for
Oh,
Buffy.
completely. I mean, she says it at the end where she's like, "I can't hide from myself. I can't lie to myself or Spike for
Yep.
some reason." Like, I
He's
I think
perceptive.
he is a person or a vampire, I guess, who sees through subterfuge. This is the thing
Mhm.
about how he pretends to be this, like, "I just like violence and fun. I drink and I smoke," like, whatever. He's got this whole persona, but underneath, he is a thinker. And he sees and observes Buffy and Angel, and he's like, "Come on. We all know what's
Yeah.
happening here." Like, he's just like, "I gotta say it. I'm not gonna pretend that you guys are just friends. It's not, it's not believable." He's right. It's ridiculous.
Mhm. He is
Well, I mean,
spot
so
on.
is is Weavy any outie as he is in this episode, and like he has so many meaningful scenes. It's funny how it sort of kicks off after he goes back to the warehouse, but the scene where he's stalking Angel, and he's
Oh, I
he's like
love it.
watching him. He's watching through like Angel's like creepy mansion, like with the wooden board. Like he's like, and he's like, "You're such an idiot," and then he just trips and falls and wakes
I
up the
love
next
that.
morning with his hand on fire, and then runs into the car, which of course really kind of starts the pinball action of he goes from there to the spell house, the magic, I forget what the place is called, the
The magic
one of
box.
the
Magic
magic
box, yeah.
box, and then which leads him to Willow, and of course the rest of the story that we'll talk about. But I just, that one little scene, it made me laugh. I watched it 3 or 4 times, and it's just one of the funniest scenes in the whole series, where he literally just knocks himself out and then wakes up with his hand on fire. And I read somewhere that he actually got
Yes.
second and third degree burns on his hand
Yeah,
Burns.
and
from
he
that.
just acted right through it and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
took care of it after, which is, what a trooper. Yeah, that scene is so funny when he's watching Angel and he's clearly just wasted. There's, like, drunk, and then there's what Spike was in that scene where he's, like, stumbling around, and he can't, like, even hold himself upright. He's looking at Angel, and he's like, "Yeah, you, I'm not afraid of you." Like, oh my god, it was so beautiful. I kind of expected him to, like, take a swing at Angel even though Angel was in another room, like,
Mhm.
his depth perception is not all that great, and yeah, and then the physical comedy when he wakes up after his hand is on fire and he's like ping-ponging around in that little, like, courtyard area trying to get out of the sun and to get water on the burns, and then he gets in the car and he, like, pours booze on his burn, and, like, the whole thing is just it's like this wonderful moment of physical comedy, and it's
Mhm.
in this same episode where he has all these wonderful long speeches. You're right, he does all the things. We get to see it's like a James Marsters acting showcase. Like, look at what all the things he could do because he also gets to do fighting action stuff.
Give
Yeah.
him an Emmy. I
Yeah, the only
want a
thing he didn't do
belated
is
Emmy,
sing.
right?
Oh,
Well,
wait. Oh,
technically,
wait.
he did
Oh,
Oh,
he
at the
does
yes,
sing
he
at the
beginning
end.
does.
and the
He's
end.
He does sing at the end. That's right.
Well, at the beginning, he's drunkenly singing "My Way" as
Yeah.
he's stumbling in, and
into this
it's just
factory, yeah.
God, it's so good. And I think it is a huge credit to James Marsters and the writers, but mainly James Marsters, that everyone loves Spike so much. Ugh, sorry, there's definitely somebody at my door. If there are dogs. But it's a huge credit to him, the fact that in this episode where he has kidnapped Willow and Xander, and the way that he has Willow by the hair and
Yeah.
is kind of just manhandling her and threatening her, like that part makes me viscerally uncomfortable. And then within 2 minutes, I'm like, oh, Spike, you're so funny.
He's
Like,
up to his wacky hijinks again. Yeah, the bottle in
seriously,
Faith scene with Willow is truly scary. And
he is menacing.
and he's
Like,
like
I
he's like a
truly.
sort of um like he's having a manic episode, right? He's like going
Oh,
up and
yeah.
down in his mood so quickly. He's like sad and then he's violent and then he's sad and then he's drunk and then he's got an idea and then he goes up and down and up and down. And even in that scene with Willow, he starts out being like, I'm so sad, I'm so sad. And then he's like, I haven't had a woman in weeks unless you
Yeah.
count the
Unless
shopkeeper.
you
And
count
it's
this.
like, oh God, what is he gonna do to Willow? Is he
Yep.
just gonna bite her or is there something else gonna happen? Like,
He is kind of like almost sexually toying with her in a way, and the way he's touching her and almost caressing her, you can tell that Willow is starting to feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
And
Oh,
I think
Allison
I was
Hannigan in that
half
scene.
asleep.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
Allison
good.
Hannigan in that scene is spectacular. Like, that
Yeah.
scene is spectacular because Spike does start off I mean, he literally breaks the bottle and tells her he's gonna stick it in her face to her brain. And
Yeah.
he does, and then he starts caressing her hair when he starts, talking about Drew. She's got this look on her. Watch the scene again. This look that she has on her face that she wants to crawl out of her skin. And she has Xander sitting over there. And the funny thing about it is, I'm so like those other stories. Like, I'm just like, I remember being like, I don't want to hear about any of those stories. They drive me nuts. I'm sure we'll talk about them at the end, especially with what happens to Cordelia. But like, you're
Mm.
watching Willow, and this is what like really centers this episode on how erratic Spike can be, and that even though we all love him, like he can still, he kills that shopkeeper pretty menacingly. And then that scene with Willow, I mean, but Allison Hannigan, like, and what I guess has frustrated me up to this point is they really front her up. Like, they give a lot of the weight of the episodes to a lot of the other
Mhm.
characters. And this is where we first start getting a really big whiff of like what she can do as an
Yeah.
actress. And
She
like
rises to the occasion.
she sure
Mhm.
does. Yeah. And Marsters again, like Spike brings it out of her. And I just think that he really in every episode that he's in, especially once he becomes a regular in future seasons, he really is a catalyst for a lot of the acting pieces that we get to see about, especially from Buffy, but you can see in this episode he just is, like I said, weaving in and out of everybody.
Yeah. You compared him to a pinball earlier, and I was thinking, how accurate that is because he does sort of, like, bounce around from person to person, just leaving a trail of chaos behind him. I love
Mhm.
the scene with the mayor and his assistant, whose name I can never remember, and how the mayor's like, "Oh, Spike, he was up to all kinds of shenanigans last year," and, like, and how he's more occupied with his golf game, and he just sort of offhandedly is like, "Yeah, have Trick take care of that," and it's just enough of a scene to let us know some really key things, one of which is that the mayor's assistant is uncomfortable, and another one is that the police actively cover up vampire murders,
Oh,
right?
100% now.
And it's funny because, we know that,
The police of Sunnydale are deeply stupid.
but maybe they're not so stupid, maybe they're completely in on it, or maybe the mayor just is like, "You don't need to know, just cover it up." I don't know, but it's an intriguing
There is
plot development.
no way that that medical examiner is not in on it.
Yeah. I think the
There's
medical
no
examiner is
way.
probably a vampire themselves. And they're like,
It would
"I'll
make
just take this
sense.
blood, and then I'll take this blood, and then I'll take this blood."
Like iZombie,
Yeah, I
but
just watched, the first episode of iZombie again the other day. For some reason, I was
I
thinking about it.
love that show. It's
It's
so
a
charming.
it was a very underrated show. I think a lot of people didn't give it a chance because they were over-zombied with, like, Walking Dead when it came out. But it could not be a more different show from Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah. That is very true. And
Didn't
I think
didn't
one
didn't
thing
they didn't they say in this episode though, was it the mayor? But someone in this episode does say that the police are kind of in on it. Didn't weren't they talking about like the shop?
Yeah, they're like
I
the police had a heck of a time covering it up.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I
So, it
but
doesn't tell us
the one
exactly what the police know, but it does mean that they're complicit.
the and like you said, that really short the one quote that was fantastic is he starts off he starts off the whole conversation saying, I swear I'd sell my soul to have a decent short game. And then he goes, of course, it's a little late for that. And that kind of, ultimately, and we can talk about this in spoilers, we
Yeah.
kind of know why he says that. But he finishes, he looks up at the guy and who I can't remember his name either. And he goes, "Hell, I'm just funning."
Yeah.
I was I was laughing so hard. This is like and this actor too, and I know him from lots and lots of stuff, character acting, and he's this really like kind of amazing actor. And it just he looks up and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just funning." And I was like,
I
I'm
think
so
he must have been
flattered.
having the time of his life in this episode. He plays a lot of more serious characters. He does a lot of drama, and to do this, like, campy, like, avuncular, goofy, evil villain, it must be delightful for an actor to get a part
Mhm.
like that. Like, "Oh, I can do so many fun things." Like, it just yeah. I every time I see his face, I just think, like, "This guy's having the time of his life. This is, like, the
Oh,
best
yeah.
role he's ever had."
Well, and it just you would think as an actor it must be so thrilling to be a villain with layers like that. You just get such meaty, juicy, parts to play. And I think about that all the time with James Marsters as Spike. And Penny, cut me off. I know you had mentioned Sid Vicious and
Yeah, go for
going
it.
into well, with you know, with Spike's success as a character, I kind of love that he succeeded and became a fan favorite almost in spite of Joss Whedon,
Mhm.
and how Joss originally wanted Spike to be like Sid Vicious, and James Marsters, who was a fan of punk and knew the Sex Pistols very well, was like, you don't want Sid Vicious. Like, that's not who you want. You want Johnny Rotten. And being able to bring his knowledge of those musicians and their mannerisms and their personalities and the way that they spoke and embody that as a character was fantastic to watch. And there's a link that we'll put in the show notes to a video of he and is it Juliet? I just drew a blank.
Juliet
With
Landau?
thank
Drusilla?
you.
Yeah.
Drusilla, yes. Him and Juliet Landau. I think it might be a Comic-Con panel or something from 2012 where they are talking about being Spike and Drew and how they both thought Joss Whedon was telling each of them individually to be like Sid Vicious, and they both embodied Sid in their characters, which worked out perfectly. But there's part of that interview where Marsters talks about how he was only supposed to be on the show for basically one episode, and that was School Hard. He was supposed to show up and be evil and dirty and punk rock and then basically be dead and never come back. And he came back in this episode and absolutely killed it. And one of the quotes from him that really resonates in how much he understands Buffy and who Buffy was for is he talks about, he understands why the Buffy audience fell in love with him and why Whedon basically never saw it coming. And he says Buffy was written about and for people who are on the outside. It was not written for the Cordelias of the world. It was not written for the popular kids in high school. It was written for the not popular kids, which is basically the 99%. Spike, because the character endangered Joss's theme, was pushed to the outside of a group of outsiders, which just made everyone resonate with him and fall for him even more. And he talks about how Whedon did not want viewers to like Spike and wrote him that way. And I love how much that kind of backfires. And because of Marsters and his personality and his charisma and his deep understanding of the character of Spike, he basically forces Whedon to recognize his popularity and the draw the audience had to him. And the rest is kind of history. And it just makes me a little happy that
Yeah.
it was not really Joss's doing.
James Marsters has gone on after this to have a fantastic career of showing up in like every sci-fi supernatural like series. We talked about this offline the other day. He shows up in Torchwood and I didn't know he was going to. And the
Oh,
character, it's like a
yeah.
3 or 4 episode arc, and the character is really really fun and but very different from Spike. And when he showed up and I was watching Torchwood, I was like, "No way!" Like, I was so excited to see him, and he does an episode of Supernatural, and he had a Marvel show for a while
Yes.
called The Runaways, and he just keeps popping up in different sci-fi things, and I just I feel like he has achieved a certain status in the world of, like, sci-fi fandom, where people are
Mhm.
like it's like, other iconic actors like Katie Sackhoff after Battlestar Galactica, like, she could
Oh,
show up
yeah.
in any nerd property and people are happy to have her there. They're
Yeah.
like, "It's Katie Sackhoff!" Like, he's got it's like although I wonder how many people think of him as Spike and don't think of him as James Marsters. I imagine that the Spike persona is pretty
That's
clingy.
true. Well, that episode of Supernatural that he's in, his love interest in that episode is Charisma Carpenter,
Yeah, they're
and
great together.
they are fantastic. I mean, that episode is not the best episode of Supernatural, but I will rewatch it every time because they are in it.
Yeah.
Well, and we again, we were talking off air on, the other day, and, uh, during the downtime during that episode, Charisma Carpenter and James Marsters were talking, and, at a Comic-Con 6 or 7 months ago in England, James Marsters said he was so thankful for that episode because when and this really speaks to kind of the acting of the show, I think. But when he first met Charisma Carpenter and Buffy, he just assumed she was the mean girl that she was in the show. So they never
Oh,
spoke. And
yeah.
then, of course, when he became a regular on the show, he had moved to Angel. And in that same interview, which is kind of interesting too, he talked about, we talked about how he ended up on the show as a regular. And, ultimately what happened was Charisma Carpenter left, and Joss said, we need another Charisma Carpenter, someone that'll tell Buffy that she's, kind of full of shit. And
Oh, someone
uh,
who will speak truth to power. Yeah, that's
and
good.
yes, uh, Sarah Michelle Gellar said that, immediately said Spike. And that's how that kind of took root. So he always thanks Charisma Carpenter and Sarah for his getting the role. It never, it obviously stuck in Joss's mind, and he'll in interviews he kind of backtracks and says this was that episode that really turned him on Spike. But
Mhm.
but it really was the two female leads that kind of got him onto the show. One by leaving, and one by saying, "Yeah, that's the one that can
Yeah.
call me out."
I mean,
So
it could not be more brilliant. We'll get there. Season 4 is coming, but it, Spike does something to the chemistry of the group that no one else can do. And it's the pinball metaphor, or like the aha video, right? He just like he comes in the middle, he like blunders around, he bashes into different people, like he creates havoc everywhere he goes, and then he's like, see ya, and leaves. He doesn't take any accountability for the chaos that he creates, and
Oh, no.
he kind of enjoys it, he revels in it, and he makes it funny. And it it's such a different energy than anyone else brings to the group, because, like, you got Willow, who's always trying to prove herself and that she's not a nerd or whatever, and then she's got her growing witch power, and then you've got Xander, who's got his own issues, and
Mhm.
there's just something that Spike does that no one else can do, and he ends up being an amazing comedy duo with so many people. He and Giles together
Every
is so
character.
fun in future episodes, but
Oh my gosh.
in
There's
this
one.
yeah, in this
I can't
episode
wait.
in particular, it's him and Joyce, and I
I
just
can't
wanna
believe we haven't talked about that yet.
I know.
yeah, I just
It
wanna
just makes
play
me giddy.
I wanna play this, I saved these sound bites as Spike weeps at Willow, Spike weeps at Joyce, Spike weeps at Buffy and Angel. So
So I'm strolling through the park looking for a meal, and I happen to walk by, and she's making out with the Chaos Demon. And so I said, I don't have to put up with this. And she said, fine. So I said, fine, do whatever you like. I mean, I thought we were gonna make up,
Well, she sounds very unreasonable.
She is. She's out of her mind. That's what I miss most about her.
Well, Spike, sometimes even when two people seem right for each other, their lives just take different paths. Like when Buffy's father and I...
No, this is different. Our love was eternal, literally. You got any of those little marshmallows?
Oh my gosh.
Let me look.
The way
You got any
he
of those little
says,
marshmallows?
like, no, this is different. He's just-
my favorite part, of course, it's the same as Joyce when she's like, "Do you live here in town?" Right? I love this line right here.
Well, she sounds very unreasonable.
I mean, that is Drusilla. She is very
She's-
unreasonable.
Yeah, she is the epitome of very unreasonable. And Joyce is just being so sweet and
Yeah.
such a nice hostess.
Just made him some
And
cocoa.
listen to him.
And then, oh my God, when Angel comes to the door and then
Oh
Spike
my
does his whole
gosh.
routine behind
Behind.
Joyce, like miming that he's going to bite her and stuff. It is one of the funniest scenes in TV. It's so good because we can tell that Spike likes Joyce and that she's not in any
Yes.
danger from him. You can just tell.
Right.
He just likes
That's
her.
what makes it funny. It would
Yeah.
not be as funny if we were like, oh shit, is Spike gonna kill Joyce?
Like at
like-
no time do you think he's going to kill Joyce. You never think it.
Just the way
And-
he's sitting there, like sort of leaning over the counter. You're like, yeah, like he's just He's just, and it's in him too, because he does those kind of random kills throughout this episode, and then he's with Joyce, and we're like, oh, he's with Joyce.
Yeah, he
It's
just needs a mom.
delightful.
Yeah,
He
and
does.
Angel is
on-
like bristling with hostility, and he can't get in the door. It's such a fun moment, and
It's
Joyce, of
like, oh
course,
yeah, you're not
thinks
invited.
yeah, but if you think though back to when like the last interactions that Angelus and Spike had, and all Angelus
Mm,
does is mock and mimic him, and this
yeah,
is Spike getting his revenge, and he's in Buffy's house
yeah.
with Buffy's mom having hot cocoa, talking about a lover, and he can't even come through the door
Oh,
because
it's so
they
great.
it,
Well, and his just hope, like how lovelorn he is in this episode and how wistful he is. He does that thing, like, when there's something going on with you and you're telling it to, each friend that you might talk to. There are certain parts that you get down like Pat, where you'll repeat it and be like, okay, and then this happened, where he's talking about, have you ever seen a chaos demon? Like, just lamenting this. And one of my favorite things that he does when we have him and Angel and Buffy interacting, and they're walking down the street near the magic shop, and Spike just stops and is like, oh god. And
the bench.
Angel's like, now what? He's like, we killed a homeless man on this bench. It's just like, me and Drew, those were good times. And he's just like sitting there laughing and reminiscing about how he begged for mercy, and that only made her bite
He's
harder.
acting
And
the whole thing out
it's
without anyone there, and
glorious.
Buffy and Angel are watching him, and he's just acting this whole. He's sitting on the bench, and oh
Oh,
my god,
he's
it's so
reliving
beautiful.
his glory moments with Drusilla, and oh my
It's
god.
so good. He
It-
is masterful in this episode. Like, I cannot. I'm sad that back then fantasy and comedy like this did not get as much attention at the Emmys, because he 100% deserved it for this
Yeah.
episode. It's brilliant. And the look on, I will say, Buffy and Angel, Sarah Michelle Gellar, David Boreanaz's face acting in that episode is wonderful,
Yeah, it's like
especially in that moment.
this disdain that they have for Spike, and they both have it where they're just like, "Oh, I can't believe we have to not kill you." Like, "Oh, you're the
and
worst."
you think about scenes that they like. We talked about this in the last episode that I did. Spike seems to be in a lot of scenes where you kind of, when you look back in the grand scheme of TV shows now, you ask yourself, like, how did this scene stay in? Like him sitting there drinking hot cocoa, like he's already done that same monologue, because he's actually he hasn't done it yet, but he's gonna do it. I think in a much no, he already did it with Willow.
With Willow, yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
he's so good you can't cut it. The bench scene, like they don't need the bench scene. That's just there. And you're watching the scene going, "Oh, there's Whedon probably got to this and was like, son of a bitch, I've got to keep this."
It's
It
so
is so
good. Yeah. It's so good. It's all so good. And honestly, we only need a few moments of the other storylines. Like, yes, there's like
Mhm.
plot importance to Oz and Cordelia finding out about Xander and Willow, and that whole thing, and Cordelia getting injured. All of that is plot important, but it didn't need more than the like 5 minutes of screen time it got. We got exactly as much information about that as we needed.
It's true.
Plus the really wonderful moment where Cordelia tells Oz that his sense of smell thing is disturbing, and he goes, "I really agree." Uh,
Yep.
it's just
That's
perfect
great.
delivery from Seth Green. But those storylines just needed to have like go from A to B, and we got that, and that's good because the whole rest of the episode is like a Spike celebration. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
let's just enjoy Spike. Yeah, his scenes with Willow where he's weeping and then threatening with her are amazing. His scenes with Joyce, like he and Joyce, I don't
I
want to have
love
too
them
many
so
spoilers, but I
much.
love them
Oh my
together so
god.
much, and there will be more of them in the future for us all to
Oh,
enjoy. And he's funny with Angel. After this, Angel gets his own show. We all know that, and Spike is on Buffy in season 4. And so we don't get to see Spike and Angel together again for a long time, which is too
Mhm.
bad because they hate each other in the funniest way possible. And I am so there for it. They just, oh my God, they hate each other.
They're so different.
Yeah.
Like,
And the
ugh.
they are and it's, it's funny. Well, we'll talk about it in spoilers because
Yeah, it's hard not to get into
Yeah.
there's an episode that's so special with the 2 of them that I wanna talk about in spoilers.
Oh yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. I I can't get enough of their mutual hatred and the way that they are like petty about it with each other. Like when they're in the magic
So petty.
box and Angel's like, I don't know why you are going to so much trouble for someone who doesn't even care about you. She's really fickle and like that is just mean. Like he knows
Yeah.
he's saying that just to be mean to Spike. And I think there's a part of Angel that's like feels really bad about how Angelus not only was a horrible murderer, but also was just mean. It's just like mean
Yep.
person. But he's like, I can use my Angelus powers against Spike and it's allowed. Like there's like he gets a little thrill out of being mean to Spike.
Oh yeah. That's never going away.
No.
Never ever. Well, and I think, gosh, Spike it's so hard to pull attention away from Spike in this episode, but there are some really fantastic moments with a few of the other characters. One, Oz, I just love Oz, and it breaks my heart in this episode watching he and Cordelia discover Xander and Willow. And Oz just has so many great lines too. Like back at the beginning. So, we get the callback to just a couple episodes with Band Candy where Buffy is studying away for her SATs, and we find out that she gets a 1430 out of 1600, so not too shabby for Buffy. And Willow, of course, is upset at her 740 verbal score out of 800. And I love Xander's like, well, considering that resembles my combined score, we're just going to ignore that. And I love Oz looking over her score, like the paper, she hands it to him, and he's just like, well, I can see why you'd be upset. And then she looks all hurt, and he goes, that was my sarcastic voice. And Xander's like, it sounds a lot like your regular voice. And he's just like, I've been told that.
I've been told that.
Yeah.
His
It's so great.
delivery is so perfect. And when he gives Willow the little witch pez,
Oh, I
it's such
know.
a sweet moment. Although I will say I cringe every time I hear her say, "What's the occasion?" The way
Oh,
she enunciates
that's funny. I actually love
occasion.
that.
Oh, I
Occasion.
can.
It
It's
cracks me
very
up.
it's very Willow.
Yeah.
And it's very appropriate, but there's just something in me
Yeah.
that winces. But Oz loves Willow for Willow. And we also see how much Cordelia truly loves
Ugh.
Xander, putting up pictures of him all over her locker. And it just kind of reminds you at the beginning of the episode just how invested they are. And Cordelia, especially, like, she truly loves Xander. She was going to stay with him if he was a fish back in Go Fish in that swim team episode. She gave up a lot of her friends for him. She did a lot of growing because of her feelings for him.
Yeah.
And, I do think poor Willow was in a really hard spot. I think she truly did love Oz, but I don't think Xander had the same types of feelings for Cordelia. And he did her dirty.
Yeah.
It
I
makes
don't
me
think
feel
so
good.
either. I think Cordelia really fell for Xander, and Xander was just, you know, dating
Horny
a
little
girl that he could date. I mean, I think in high school, and it's his first girlfriend, right? And he's
Yeah.
like excited to have a girlfriend. I think a lot of people, the first person they date is not someone that they're truly excited about, but it's someone who they could date, right? It's like someone who asked them out or was interested in them, and you just
Well,
go with it. And he didn't fall in love with her. And
mm,
and
but
he
she's beautiful and popular and a
yeah.
cheerleader,
Oh, he'll
and
never
he's
do
a
better. Right?
yeah.
She's like the
So
epitome of what's awesome in women. Because you also find out over
and
the course of
brilliant.
them dating but she's, like, smart and good in school and funny and a good fighter. Like, she's the
Yeah.
complete package, and he does not
Yeah.
deserve her, and so I'm glad that they get broken up, but it is painful to watch how hurt she is, and in the
Yeah.
hospital scene where she just turns to
Oh,
him and says, "Stay away from me." I love the economy of it and how she's just like, "I don't wanna talk about it. I don't wanna hear your apologies. Like, just go away. We're done. We're just done."
it's so
And
sad.
the big part of that scene too, she says that, but then the camera is on the other side of the bed and she turns and he walks out and she is sobbing,
Yeah.
It's
hysterically
awful.
sobbing. And it struck me in that moment. And when I watched it a second time, I really kind of focused in on Cordelia. And you think about how far she's come, as far as, and I think the one thing that, like, Oz, don't hate me for this, but he started to annoy me a little bit in this episode. And here's why.
Mhm.
And this is just pure, like, as a person and a human, like, in it, I think Oz is fantastic, but he's like the steady ship. He is who
Mhm.
he is and has always been. Whereas Cordy at the beginning of this was the mean girl. And the depth that she
Mhm.
showed in this episode, including at the beginning where she gives a very typical line, that line, when Buffy gives her score and says she can kind of go anywhere. By the way, can we just get this out of the way? You can have a 1430 SAT and maybe burn down your high school and still not be able to get into a really great school. But
Yeah.
okay. But she says a
Yeah.
Cordy thing when she says, "Well, I think this is great. Now you can leave and never come back." I mean that in a positive way. Get out of Sunnydale, that's a positive thing. What kind of moron would ever want to come back here? Which, of course, then we see Spike
Yeah.
coming back. But again, that's nuanced for her because there was a time where she would have meant that in the other
In the
way.
mean way.
She's
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
she's saying it, I this is great for you. Like, you can leave. The pictures in
Mm.
the locker, like, I mean, okay, if you go back to season 2 where she was like, almost like, the whole, like, I'm not gonna admit that I'm going out with Xander. Now she's
Mhm.
all in, walking down the hallway with him.
Yeah.
And and then, going to look for them. Like, there's an authentic, like, this is the first time in her life where she has something authentic. She has friends
Mhm.
that like her for who she is and even don't like her for who she was. It's a very authentic relationship. And Charisma Carpenter, very underrated in this. Like, she is absolutely
Yes.
fantastic and spectacular. And I love that they moved her to another show. But I like, just so she this episode again, I think she really, next to Spike, she really gets a chance to shine.
I think people write off this actor, Charisma Carpenter, as like, "Oh, well, she was a Laker girl, she's just pretty," and they don't take the time to look at how deep her characters are and how much acting she's really doing. And, I was a little guilty of that too. I was like, is she just playing herself? Like, James Marsters thought the same thing. Like, is she just playing
Yeah.
herself? Until I saw her on Veronica Mars. And the character she plays on Veronica
Yeah.
Mars is very different, but also
Oh,
Mhm,
yeah.
kind of like a mean girl, but in a
mhm.
Mhm.
in a really different way. And I was like, oh, now I can see the acting. Like, sometimes you need to see someone in more than one role. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, now I see that what they were doing was like actually
Well,
something.
she's just so good at bringing that nuance and depth to Cordelia. And it is so apparent in her mannerisms and her tone of voice and the way she behaves in this episode. You can feel her concern and worry for Xander when she's talking about, like, what did she say, drug traffickers or something
Oh,
like
yeah. What
that
if
at one
Colombian
point.
drug lords kidnapped
Yeah,
them?
like, she is worried about Xander. Like, she truly loves him, and she has grown so much, and we see it, and it's so heartbreaking to see the buildup and the way that her face falls when she and Oz walk in on Willow and Xander, and the way she just immediately runs away. She just looks so hurt and
Yeah.
so pained. And then, of course, they have to have her impaled because why not? But
I love the way that scene is filmed. You know, we're on a two shot of Willow and Xander, and they're playing that like soft, like slow romantic music of them. You know, they're having this near death experience, and the show has managed to make me forget about Oz and Cordelia looking for them. At this moment, I'm totally like, I'm like, oh, I can understand if you think you're about to get killed by a vampire, like I would want to make out with whoever I was trapped with anyway, no matter if I was into them or not, and they're into each other. So yeah, I get it. And then the camera, you know, does it pan or it turns, but then we see Oz and Cordelia walk into frame. And as the viewer, I was like, oh, I forgot that they were coming. Oh, that's like, it's like you feel this, like your heart sinks for
yeah,
them. And then I love that Oz is immediately practical. We have to get out of here. And
yeah,
Cordy can't even talk. Like she just has to run away. And it's such a great moment. And the guilt that Xander and Willow have immediately too is just like palpable.
So
oof,
the rebar scene,
oof.
like
Mhm.
that happened to her in real
I can't.
life. That happened to her in real
Yeah.
life. When she was
Yeah.
5 years old, she she never has told the complete story, but she literally had rebar through her. She's got a 5-inch scar. And there was I don't this was like 4 or 5 years ago, and the reason why I know this is because there was an article written about it, like someone, and this is what's kind of neat about Charisma Carpenter, kind of in her advocacy these days. But in 2019, there was someone had tweeted out, not to her, just a random like tweet that said, it was a man talking about his 12-year-old daughter. And he says in the tweet, my daughter doesn't wear hair up because she has a scar on the back of her neck. She thinks it's
Oh
ugly and afraid of
yeah,
what people will think. I think it's badass. Can you please show her that her daddy's not the only one that thinks so? Likes and comments and retweets, super appreciated. It was literally just, he put it out into Twitter.
Yep.
And 2 weeks later, Charisma Carpenter responds, hey kiddo, late to this tweet, but I want you to know I get scar shame. I have a thick, wide scar about 4 inches on my belly. I was 5 when I was impaled by a rebar. My scar is a part of my story, but it's not who I am. It doesn't define me. It makes me unique, just like yours makes you unique. How amazing. First of all, I immediately thought, oh my gosh, Whedon found out about this and put it in the episode without telling her. And
Yeah.
2, I
100%.
don't know
And
if
she had
that's
to
true, by the
relive
way.
that trauma. Yeah.
I, I hate that that's where I go with that. But how amazing is it that she was just on Twitter and found that comment and then responded to it? It just, again,
It's
it's
beautiful.
like really, it's rooted me in like Charisma Carpenter. Like she is a fantastic just human being. Everything that she's gone through since 2018, 2019, and she continues to fight for what's right, which says a lot about who she is.
She is a fierce and outspoken advocate. And if you follow her on social media in any format,
Mm.
you can see that. And it has just made my respect for her grow, exponentially ever since Buffy wrapped up and I found my way on the internet to all of the accounts of ex Buffy stars. And she's just one that seems like a truly genuine caring person. And I think that's part of what she's able to bring to Cordelia as a character. There's a softness to her and this
Mhm.
authenticity that shines
Yeah.
through.
Because if she didn't have that authenticity, Cordelia couldn't be lovable. She would just be a mean girl. But it's the fact that she's always telling the truth. And you can tell she really means what she says and says what she means and stands behind what she said. She's not the kind of person who would ever be like, "Oh, that's not what I meant. You took it the wrong way." Like she says what she means.
Oh yeah.
And that honesty and directness is, you can't help but respect it even if you're on the receiving end of it. Right? There's always a part of you that's going to be like, "Well, she's not wrong." Um
Yeah.
I I'm sad that we didn't get more of her in the later seasons of Angel, but I guess we could talk about that later.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
Oh,
yeah.
I will say that fake out scene, the first
Oh,
Oh,
time I watched this,
to the funeral?
I
I hate that.
yes, I hate those scenes, but I remember 100% falling for it
well,
for a
I
split
fell for
second.
I know what happens, and I was like, I'm in my head going,
Yeah,
"Wait a second.
it's like,
Wait a
wait,
second. does something wonky happen and she comes back? Like, I was like, I was like, you dumbass, you fell for it again.
Yeah.
It was a well done fake out,
Yeah.
but I still hate it. I was
I
like,
kind of
damn it.
resented it. I was like, that's cheesy. But I do remember the first time I saw it being like, oh, they killed Cordelia. Like, I was not ready for that.
Nope.
And they didn't
Do you
kill
think do you
Cordelia.
think the funeral was, by the way, for the lady who ran the magic
Oh,
spell
the
place?
magic shop? Maybe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
What
very
is that?
possible.
The second owner now of the magic shop that's been killed.
Yeah, Drew
Like,
killed the
Yeah.
other one, and then
That's
Because
Spike
it was
killed
the
this
uncle,
one.
right? That uncle.
Yeah.
It wasn't the uncle. He was like, he had like a fake accent and everything when Jenny went
Yeah.
into the
oh
shop.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
he's
then
like,
once
oh,
he
you're in the
realized,
trade. Yeah.
yeah, she knew what she was talking about. But that position, it's like, is it cursed? That's no
Yeah.
fun.
We should keep a running tally of how many magic shop owners
Yeah.
we see.
I
get
have
killed.
started adding up body counts for, students at Sunnydale and teachers, and then regular like named civilians, unnamed civilians.
Nice.
So by the end of season 3, we'll have
Oh.
a nice little
I
total
can't wait.
so far.
That's
It's
awesome.
It's already higher than I thought it was gonna be. I was just like, damn, I forgot how many people.
That's why they
actually
have to have 12 cemeteries in
died.
Sunnydale.
Seriously, for a population of what, like 38,500 people? Is that what it said on the sign?
Oh, is that what it
That
said?
Spike
That's funny.
drives through. Yeah, I was like, that's pretty tiny.
That's
for
a small town that
12
has a
cemeteries.
university and a college and
Yeah.
a zoo, and there's so many things in Sunnydale. An airport and
museum.
the docks and a bus station and and I loved when
True.
the mayor's assistant was like, oh yeah, and there was an incident at a magic shop. I was like, there's no way Sunnydale
Hey.
has more than one magic shop, right?
A magic shop.
A magic shop. Although
One.
I was thinking about Salem, Massachusetts, which is one of my favorite places in the country, and
Mhm.
how Salem is known for, the famous witch trials. It also has an amazing history of like maritime trade and pirates. There's like a whole pirate history to Salem, as well as the witch
That's
history. But when you go to Salem, there's like 15 magic stores. Like, there are people walking around the streets of Salem with like giant, like fuzzy witches hats and capes, and there are people dressed as pirates, and it's like being at like a really chill, like Halloween themed amusement park all the time.
I was gonna
in
say
Salem.
like grown up Halloween town.
Yeah,
That
it's really
that sounds
it's
lovely.
I don't go there in October. During the month of October, Salem like puts on like a huge Halloween thing, and there's parades and all this stuff. I'm not big on crowds, so I avoid Salem. But it's just super cool every other month of the year to go there. So much witch stuff.
Speaking of witch stuff, I tried to save most of this for our spoilery discussion, but I do want to talk a little bit about Willow in this episode and how she immediately thinks to go the witchcraft route and do some sort of spell to try to squash the feelings that she and Xander have. And the fact that, one, she knows what happened the last time there was a love spell. She and multiple other women throughout Sunnydale almost killed Xander. And she's doing this in secret. When he gets there to the science lab, she's just like, oh, it'll help you for the test. Like, it'll help you study. And she essentially was going to drug him without his consent or knowledge at this point.
He's calling her out for it. And she never stops. She just keeps right on going.
Yeah.
And
he's like, is that a spell book? No.
No, and he holds
yes, it is, woman.
He holds it up.
Witchcraft.
And he's like, why does it smell like church in here? Evil.
Yeah.
Evil church. What the hell's an evil church?
Well, and
I've been in an evil church.
Yeah. Well,
when you're in an evil church, you know you're in an evil church.
Oh gosh. But it's this giant waving red flag that one, she immediately, even when he says like, do you not remember that I seem to have bad luck with this type of thing? And she's like, well, you said that you wished we could, that we didn't feel this way anymore and you could just put an end to it. And she's throwing it back on him like, well, you wanted a solution. I'm giving you a solution. And she wasn't even going to tell him about
Yeah.
it.
It's
And I was
not
like,
okay.
oh, I was
It's
like,
not
this is
okay.
bad. It brings up all sorts of issues that, witchcraft in general, and we start to see aspects of Willow's personality shine through. And the way that her demeanor changes when she's getting defensive about this and explaining it to Xander, I had flash forwards that were also
Yeah.
flashbacks, I guess. And I was just like, oh, Willow. But Xander, the fact that this person she cares about, she almost axed him last time there was a love spell, and she is still willing to go through with this without his knowledge or consent. And I was like, oh,
And she's
that's a
so
pretty.
confident about it. When she goes to the magic
Mhm.
store, the magic shop person is like, love spells could be tricky. Are you sure you know what you're doing? And she's like, I know how to do a love spell. She hasn't been practicing witchcraft that long, right? She started at the end of season 2, and it hasn't even been a year. And she's like, I know how to do a love spell. I'm 17. Like, I know everything. It's a little annoying.
It's just like all the red flags popping up around that plot line.
But I also know that if I had discovered magic was real and that I could be a practicing witch in high school, I would have been exactly the same way. I would have been
Yeah,
all over that.
that's hard to resist. Gosh.
I mean, the
But
idea that
it's just,
magic is real is just so cool. Like, oh, can you imagine being able to be like, flick of your hands and suddenly you have lights, or like you move things with your
Mhm.
mind, or like, there's so many cool
You're
things.
basically describing the Force from Star Wars. So yeah, I'm all
I
in.
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I did
There are
always
lots
want
of
the Force.
crossovers.
Yeah.
It's true. Oh
Thank goodness
gosh.
Willow's on the light side of things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Oh,
true.
dear. I remember this title in particular, and I always just instinctively put a comma, or not a comma, an apostrophe with lovers walk, and then seeing it now and realizing that it did not have an apostrophe, it makes it so much more interesting and meaningful and poignant that it's just this one simple sentence, even lovers walk. It's like
Yeah.
everyone breaks up, everyone's out the door, and I do love at the end when it's the music playing and everyone's sad, and you get all of these, close up kind of pensive shots of Cordelia and Willow and Oz and Xander and Buffy and Angel, and sitting with this, idea of grief that either they have separated or they know it's the right choice. And then you get Spike just kind of boisterously singing My Way as he leaves town. It's just so
What a great bookend
perfect.
to the beginning, the drunken version of it that he's
Seriously.
singing. Yeah.
When I love me some Gary Oldman.
And he drives off into the desert with his blacked out car, and there's sun, like you can see the sunbeam coming in, and like because he's smoking cigarettes all the time, there's like all this cigarette smoke like
Yeah.
swirling in the sunbeam. And I just remember as an early film student, we always tried to find a way to have our characters smoke because it just looked so good on
It,
film.
yeah.
It was like, oh, it's
Those
just
are
so cool,
cool.
like the curling wisps of smoke. And I was like, oh, there it is in the sunbeam. It's smoke.
Well, where did he say he and Drew got to?
Brazil.
How did they
Brazil.
drive there? Like, how was that road trip getting down
They
to
probably took a boat.
Brazil?
Yeah, I
It's
don't
the
know.
same
And he's
part.
driving in the sunlight. I'm gonna suspend disbelief that the blacked out car windows would work, but I don't think in real life that they would. I think
Maybe
that
they only went at night.
I
think
think at
it's real
some
risky.
point someone's probably going to pull them over. Just a thought, but
Yeah, but that
hey, there's a
person is
car
not going
going
to
by.
survive.
Also true. Well, that's the thing. I guess you'd
Unless
have
it's
to very
daytime.
strategically roll down your window and like pull them in real quick. Ooh,
Yeah.
bad news bears.
It would be interesting. They probably didn't drive all the way to Brazil. They probably from California to Brazil. So you'd go
You
south into
could.
Central America and
You could.
yeah, I don't know. You could do it.
Let's see.
You
Los
could actually do that
Angeles
drive.
To pick a city in Brazil.
Rio?
Google Maps. Are you sure you want to drive? Okay, yes I do.
Leave me alone, Google. We're trying to
It
find Spike.
We just
Seriously.
want to know how long it took them to get there.
Well, at first I accidentally put in walking. It's not letting me calculate the distance.
That's hilarious.
But if you were to take a plane, it's 17 hours and 10 minutes.
That is a long flight.
Yep. So, they probably hopped a boat a time or two and stashed the car somewhere.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of following Spike and Drew on a road trip also. That sounds fun.
It won't. It says it's 2,022 miles, but it doesn't. It just refuses to let you find out how to do
It's like,
it.
does not compute.
No.
Don't try to do it, idiot.
That's really funny because I know that a few times I've accidentally entered like a town in New England, but had it think that it was in Europe because a lot of New England towns have European names. And then it'll be like, go here and then get on a boat and then go across the ocean. Like
Right?
the map. But I don't think that was Google Maps. I think that was MapQuest that had a sense of
MapQuest.
humor.
Oh.
Maybe that's what it was.
I think it was MapQuest because I remember one
That
time
sounds right.
I looked into walking into Mordor on MapQuest and it was like, you can't walk to Mordor. And I was like, yeah, that's the right answer.
That's so funny. That was a good nostalgic late 90s, early 2000s activity. Putting random faraway crap into MapQuest.
Yeah.
Just
did
so we're
that.
all clear, now all of my fourth graders do it with Google Earth, so it still lives. It still lives free.
Nice.
good.
That's really
The
nice.
minute I introduce Google Earth, that I have to preface it with, okay, don't be stupid, and B, don't spy on anybody. Mr. Pete, here's your backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Henny, do you by chance have there were the two monologues that Spike did. The one was when he was talking to Spike and Angel about being friends. And then the other one was about at the end of the episode when he talks about how fun it was. Do you by chance have those clips?
I don't have the how fun it was, but I do have the one where he's talking to Angel and Buffy about love and stuff.
We've got to hear that one because I have to hear him say you'll fight and you'll shag and you'll hate each other until it makes you quiver.
Here's the bringer, rats. With the morning paper.
Great, more moping. That's gonna get her back.
The spell's gonna get her back.
Not a trouble for somebody who doesn't even care about you.
Shut your gob.
And she really is just kind of fickle.
Shut up! What do you know? It's your fault. For both of you. She belongs with me. I'm nothing without her.
Yeah, that I'll have to agree with. You're pathetic, you know that? You're not even a loser anymore. You're a shell of a loser.
Yeah. You're one to talk.
Meaning?
The last time I looked in on you two, you were fighting to the death. Now you're back making googly eyes at each other like nothing happened. Makes me want to heave.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. You're just friends.
That's right.
You're not friends. You'll never be friends. You'll be in love till it kills you both. You'll fight, and you'll shag, and you'll hate each other till it makes you quiver, but you'll never be friends. Love isn't brains, children. It's blood. Blood screaming inside you to work its will. I may be love's bitch, But at least I'm man enough to admit it.
I love that.
And that monologue is what essentially causes Buffy at the end of the episode to say Spike is right, which of course sends us careening towards the end of the Carrie, you had mentioned like how the first 7 episodes and all of the seasons like spearhead everything, and you're 100% correct. And then we really get the ball churning in this episode. Spike comes in, wreaks his havoc, and then breaks everybody up.
Yeah.
It is
Forever.
crazy how much this episode sets up.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Like,
it sets off the Willow and Oz kind of shifts, and of course the court. I mean, this ends Cordy and Xander, and Cordy and Willow, for that matter. So, did I say Cordy and Willow?
Yeah.
Xander and Willow.
yeah.
But yeah,
But also,
I-
Cordy and Willow can't be friends anymore either. I mean, they had
Correct.
started to develop a friendship, and that's pretty much
Correct.
ruined.
yeah. It just, oh, Spike. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
I love
He's
it.
like
He
a
creates
bomb.
the havoc. He
Yeah.
he sets off the bomb, and then literally after he fights, my favorite monologue is when he said, "Now that it literally he's wrecked everyone's life."
Yep.
And then he finishes it off by saying, "Now that was fun." Oh, don't tell me that wasn't fun. It's been so long since I had a different spot of a decent spot of violence. It really puts things into perspective. Oh yeah, you two just friends, no danger there. Oh, sod the spell. Your friends are in the factory. I'm really glad I came here. I've been all wrong-headed about this. Wearing, crawling, blaming everybody else. I want Drew back. And then I love how he says this. I just got to be the man I was, the man she loved. I'm going to do what I should have done in the first place. I'll find her wherever she is, tie her up, torture her until she likes me again. Love is a funny thing. He walks to the door and he turns around and he goes, "Love is a funny thing." And then he leaves.
Just
And
leaves.
everybody's
Like,
He's out.
There's literal like shards of glass everywhere, right? Like
Yeah.
they've destroyed everything they've come into contact with. Buffy and Angel are like hunched over trying to hold each other up, and he's just like, "Oh, that was hilarious. See you later."
I mean, he's a catalyst, almost literally, in terms of creating this sort of chemical reaction around him without really undergoing damage himself. Like, he comes in, goes out, pretty much unscathed, hops on optimistic and ready to reunite with Drew, and he just leaves everything behind him basically in shambles. And I love that Buffy pretty much called out that he's probably just got him in the factory, and he's just like, no. Like, it's all huffy and puffy. And I like how when Willow is listing off the options to Xander, there is no option somehow of Buffy or Oz or any of them finding them. They're just there to starve to death. I was like, guys, we know how much Spike was involved in and around that factory. Like, there's a pretty decent shot
that they'll
that
look
they're
for
gonna
you
check
there.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
like here. But teenage brain also.
I mean, I
you
can't
know.
blame her. That she's right. If things were going the way that Spike wanted them to go, they were probably going to get killed at the end of that, and
Yeah.
Spike was gonna drink them. And the third option, and how she's like, that's kind of the best one. is,
Yeah. Starving.
That takes a really long time to starve to death. Although I don't know if they
Right.
had water there either. Water kills you.
That'll
Not having
get
water
ya.
kills you faster, but it takes
Way
sometimes like
faster.
40 days for people to starve to death.
Yes, starvation. Oh, that just
It's a horrible, horrible way for someone to die. One of the other shows that I podcast about deals a lot with starvation, and that would be Yellow Jackets. It's also a show about teenage girls in the 90s going through some seriously horrible, traumatic stuff.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just so like freaking dark. It's like just some normal teenage girl problems in the 90s, stranded in the Canadian wilderness. Like maybe a touch of cannibalism.
I spent some time yesterday with some friends of the family that were in from out of town, and one of them was like, "Yeah, during the pandemic, I just couldn't watch anything dark or depressing, but I think I'm I'm ready to start watching dark shows again. And I was like, oh, yeah, Yellow Jackets is dark. And she was like, yeah, like, and she listed something as like, yeah, I was able to watch. And it was something that I don't even consider dark. And
Oh
I was
no.
like, oh, Yellow Jackets is not for you. You're not
Yeah, I
ready.
think everyone who is a fan of Yellow Jackets has had that moment of describing it to someone and seeing them looking back at you in horror and being like, "Oh, okay, not your show,
Yeah.
not for you."
Yeah. It's not for everyone. It's definitely a
Well,
specific taste that I
I
happen to
loved
have.
so I
Good.
loved season 1, and this is not me gonna follow up with I
Yeah.
hated season 2. I loved season 1, but I started season 2 and I watched half of the first episode of season 2, and my mind just wasn't there. So I put it down, which is sad because
Mhm.
I still haven't gone back to it yet. But now I'm starting to feel,
Like
and
you're ready.
honestly, yeah, and I
Yep.
think yeah, but I think
You've
shows
got to be
like
in the
that,
right mood.
yeah, but I think, Buffy and Angel, like, touch upon this too, like,
Mhm.
the darkest times of our life are what honestly makes us reflect. Now, listen, hopefully we don't have yellow jackety kind of dark times.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Seriously.
But
Whew.
it does make me think about, we keep thinking about, I think in the last episode, one of the last episodes that I did with you guys, we talked about how Buffy and all of its like grandioseness works a lot like Star Trek used to work. Since it's in that netherworld, you can really go after topics, and this one really does attach itself to, the darkest side of love and the things that we should avoid and the things that we should, and it
Mhm.
does make you reflect. And I listen, listen, I mean, Xander is a horrible character. And I listen, I mean, he's a horrible character. And, but it's funny. It's funny. I've never had, you talked about it, I think earlier in this episode, we talked a little bit about that first girlfriend isn't necessarily the girlfriend that you want to date, but you sometimes dip your toes into the pool. And I think we've all had an experience where we've ended up dating somebody and we were like, and I think it speaks a lot about how a person comes out of that, because you can go a lot of different directions. You can be
Mhm.
gutless and still keep dating that person and then do what Xander's doing, or you can man up and use willpower. And when you were talking about Willow with the magic too, and you can see how these stories sort of intertwined, and why I get a little frazzled between the Willow and Xander characters. They never just do what they're supposed to do and just have the conversations with the people they need to have the conversations with. Or I don't know, just stop being with Xander, and Willow stop being with Xander, and Xander stop being with Willow. It's
Yeah.
kind of easy,
Yeah.
instead of, I don't know, going to the magic spell shop to perhaps wreak havoc on the whole town again. So
Mhm.
it's funny
Yeah.
because the
It's
darkness
a
in these
it's an
episodes,
inability to have willpower or face up to the consequences of their actions. What Willow
yeah.
and Xander really should have done was just not spend so much time together
Mhm.
alone anymore. Like, there should not be any scenes of the two of them, like, talking off in a corner together alone, because that is when this stuff happens, and they're not,
Ugh.
well, Xander's kinda dumb, but Willow's not
Yeah.
dumb. She should know, like, always stay around other people when you're with Xander or something bad's gonna happen. Like,
When he's
just
asking to, like, kiss her ear or nibble her
Ah,
earlobe or whatever,
can
I
I
was like,
kiss your
"Stop it!
earlobe?
Stop it!"
yeah.
But like at
Someone's
the
gonna
beginning of
see
the
you.
episode, they're
Yeah.
sitting they're sitting on a park bench in front of the school and they're rubbing each other's legs, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
no,
Is that
Yeah.
when
no.
Cordelia comes up and Xander jumps to immediately being like, "Willow was sad, and I
Yeah.
was or something," and stuttering all over himself, and I was just like, "Damn it, man. This is ridiculous."
It really
I
is.
got I got all animated and I got all uncomfortable and visibly uncomfortable about Willow and Xander, and now Rudy, one of my dogs, is jumping up on me to make sure I'm okay.
Oh, that's so
He's
sweet.
he's concerned. He was like, "What are we freaking out about? What's going on?" He also is not a fan of how Xander and Willow handled this situation.
Ah,
Yeah, well, that's a smart dog.
Mhm.
Pixel, my cat, the podcat Pixel,
Podcat.
he actually watches TV with me, but he has not shown any interest in Buffy. His favorite show to date is still Game of Thrones.
That's fantastic.
He really likes Game of Thrones. He also really liked The Sandman, especially there's one episode of The Sandman that's about cats, and he watched that whole episode with rapt attention to the point where I was like, should I be nervous about this? Because the episode is about cats like taking over from humans, and I'm like, he's really into this.
They're so smart. Rudy, you're not smart, but you're beautiful. But they are.
Yeah, cats are smart.
I love cats, but I've never felt the same about cats after I saw Cat's Eye from Stephen King or read that.
Yeah.
That movie gave me there's some cat movie with Stephen King. I don't know if it's what you mentioned.
Is it Pet Sematary? Because that one's very upsetting.
No, but it's
the one where
that turn into cats almost.
No.
And it used to be on at like 2 a.m, and I would stay up too late and watch it and then give myself nightmares. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was called, but I can close my eyes and see these cat people clearly.
That's so scary.
It was horrifying. Like, I think if I saw it today, it would still give me nightmares.
And now I'm thinking of that Doctor Who episode where they end up on New Earth with all the cat people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, that's a weird episode. I mean,
we're definitely off on a tangent.
All right, I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back on topic. And I want to talk a little bit about the fashion. You know, I like to talk about the fashion. The opening scene, we have Buffy in her, girly, fuzzy, soft pastels. She's got this floral dress and this very sheer, delicate, embroidered sweater over the top of it and this like tiny little cute purse. She never seems to need to carry books or anything. She's just got this like very small
just
purse.
Tiny accessories.
Very delicate. Willow, the shirt that Willow is wearing in that opening scene, it is so many colors. It's like there's like a watercolor print, and then on top of it is a picture of this like hipster woman, although hipster wasn't a thing then. It's like a crazy clown, but kind of chic. I don't know. It's a wild shirt. If she had been wearing that with like regular blue jeans and it was the only bright colored loud thing, it would have been kind of cool. But of course they pair it with these like dark burnt orange pants and like yellow shoes. And it's just too many colors because they're just trying to make her look young and dorky. And I don't know, it's just this particular outfit upset me. I was like, okay, it's not as bad as the purple hat. I hate the purple hat. But this shirt just looked insane.
They do her so wrong in this series.
And then Cordy, her outfits are so corporate looking. She just looks so much like a paralegal. She looks so
mature.
She's like got the twin set. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't remember people dressing like they were going to like a law firm to work after school when I was in high school, but maybe Southern California is different. The later scene with the when they're at the lockers, there's like a thing where first we have Willow and Oz, and then we have Cordy and Xander. They like sort of switch places. Willow is now she's got the pastel like mesh sweater over a cami. She's like dressed like Buffy. And Oz is wearing like pink polka dots over an orange band tee. And I'm like, oh no, he's starting to dress like Willow. It's like too many colors. And then in their bowling date looks, Cordy again has this like sort of corporate looking sweater. Her hair is like, I don't know what they were doing with her hair. She's so beautiful. They have to like try to make her not look absolutely angelic. Like they had to work. Give her this really weird haircut. And then Willow is wearing this very delicate, sheer pink fuzzy sweater. And remember that sweater. It comes up in a future episode.
Because of that sweater, I had a sweater like that in high school. I was just like, it's a Willow sweater and it's actually pretty. And I
have one now. I have a sheer fuzzy pink sweater actually that I bought last summer. So
it's just fun.
I didn't connect it with Willow at the time, but when I was watching this episode, I was like, "Oh, I have that sweater now." It's fun.
Oh gosh.
But the fashion continues to be just indicative of pairings and of personalities. And of course, Spike has his, his punk rocker look that is amazing. Angel is always he seems to have clothes. He's found clothes. He's got shirts all the time now. Because when he first came
Yay.
back from hell, there was no shirts. Now he has furniture, he has shirts, and he's back to wearing his like long jackets that were really in at the end of the 90s, the like men's jackets that were
Mhm.
like hip or thigh length and sort of looked like a little bit like a trench coat but not. Like that was very in back then. And even longer jackets. He'll get into longer jackets when he gets to Angel. He'll have like,
One of my
like
favorites.
flowy long coats. It's pretty
He
funny.
always looks like, to me, I don't know, because I was not going to clubs of any kind in 1998, but that is how Angel looks to me, like someone who is about to go out to a club or have a few drinks or something like that. Just kind of this dark, leathery vibe. And maybe it's his brooding nature and that attitude in general, but there's just something about him that makes me think he's about to go downtown for some
Yeah.
drinks.
He does
Look,
look like he's going clubbing.
look, did this
Mhm.
25-year-old have several like pea coats and trench coats
Nice.
and
Nice.
all black, like a black a button down shirt with black pants? And didn't I maybe
Yep.
get that from watching Angel throughout this?
That's fantastic.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, look, David Boreanaz is like, as far as like someone to model yourself after, like we're almost the same age, and I like I don't look
Mhm.
anything like him. Like I don't think anybody, like he truly is one of the most unique looking,
He
handsome
is very
fellows that I've ever
unique.
seen. And
Yeah.
he's not your prototypical, like when you think of like prototypical like male leads, he's not the face you see, but he
Yeah.
and I mean, y'all had me rolling about like the sweating and stuff. But I mean,
It doesn't make sense.
look, look. When you watch this episode, sorry, and he does dress really well in this episode, but I will say, like, he is he is such a whiny, annoying ass, and
Yeah.
especially when Spike is on the show. I mean, maybe that's why. Maybe Boreanaz was like, "Look, we need to get this guy off the show, at least for the rest
Yeah.
of the season, because I look like a anyways." But yeah, no, yeah, his clothes in this episode were fantastic.
Well,
I
I
listen,
think I
I still have the pea coats like in there. Um,
It's a good look, and it's coming
yeah.
back, so good for you
yeah,
for keeping them.
That's true.
yeah.
Well, there's
Well,
just something about
well,
it that is vaguely Night at the Roxbury to
Yeah.
me too,
Well,
like with
because
the
sometimes
black.
Angel wears, like, a kinda slightly shiny shirt, and once
Yeah.
you get into shiny, it's
Yeah.
like, are you going
And
to
the
the
dark
disco?
hair. He's
Yeah.
just missing like a gold chain for the most part. And I mean, Night at the Roxbury, I think that was around the
it
same
was around
time.
this.
So
Yeah.
probably my brain was like, oh, same thing.
Yep. Look at
Same.
how they're dressed. It's so
Yep.
similar.
I think that makes
Well, and
sense.
if you like if you slant your eyes a little bit at Boreanaz in this, at Angel, like when Spike's like spying on him, he's like sitting. First of all, vampires really probably shouldn't sit next to a fireplace, but that's neither here nor there. But
Mhm.
he's sitting on this fireplace, and he's reading Nausea, the French version,
Oh
by
yeah.
Jean Paul Sartre. And I mean, you want to, if you just look at it, he's of course, I mean, the book's about being alienated, so of course
It's
there's
perfect
some
for
depth
Angel.
to it. But
Yeah.
but if you want to talk about pretentious, if you want to talk about like an honest trailer, and you did one on Angel, like in
Oh
this
my
time,
gosh.
oh,
So
That'd be
oh,
pretentious.
it would so be
fantastic.
Night at the Roxbury. It would so be pretentious, moping around in his mansion,
His weird,
Gosh.
ugly mansion. Yeah.
Well,
And
and
Angel,
it's not.
listen, I preface all this. Angel is in the entire arc of all of these shows my favorite character. So I'm bashing him out of love.
Yes. I mean, it's the same.
Oh,
I love Willow, but I have to make fun of
yeah.
her clothes. because they are ridiculous.
Yeah, they did it on purpose. They're awful. Well, and there are some other moments in this episode that were definitely kind of dated and made me flashback, but in particular, when Buffy says to Giles, "Be kind, rewind."
Yeah.
I was just like, oh gosh. I was like, how many people are watching this, for the first time today and don't know what that means?
Yeah. Have
At
no idea that that
all.
was like a thing in the 90s that we all, in the 80s that we heard all the time.
All the
Be
time.
kind,
And I
rewind.
remember being so pissed off when I would go to Blockbuster, or like Hollywood Video, and get home with a VHS and somebody didn't rewind it and I would get spoiled or something halfway
Yeah.
through. Like,
Because you had to
that's not a
rewind it
problem
the slow
anymore.
way.
Mhm. It's like,
So-
son of a bitch.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, well, hearing that line, I was like, oh gosh, the nostalgia. That one's deep.
There were some good sleighs in this episode. I really enjoyed. Buffy had one double sleigh where she took like a broken mop handle or broom
Oh
handle or
yeah.
something and got 2 vamps at once. And then of course the moment when she and Angel find the holy water and then they use them as like little grenades was just
That was
And they
silly
protect
and
Spike.
cute.
fantastic.
They
Yeah.
protected Spike Duck. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was surprised they didn't hit him with at least one of them. But
Yeah.
Just for
Just for
good
fun.
measure.
just like
But
just to torment him.
I really did love seeing Spike and Angel and Buffy all having to work together. Because
do they
I
ever
think
fight
this
again?
might. I
All
don't
3 of them?
think
No.
so.
They
I think
can't,
this
right?
is also, not the way things turn out eventually, without being too spoilery. But every other time we've seen them, for the most part, truly interact, Angel has been evil, pretty much. He wasn't around for very long in School Hard. And the chemistry that they have together and the banter back and forth, it's just so much fun. And it makes me so sad that we don't get more of it.
Yeah.
And luckily, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. We know Spike comes back and is a recurring character, but I love the banter back and forth between him and Buffy, just continuing and building up. I like when he's like, "This should be a kick," and she just goes, "I violently dislike you."
Yeah.
Just little
I had forgotten that I got that from this episode. I've said that to people.
Oh yeah.
I've said I violently dislike you. And I didn't remember that I got it from Buffy. And when I was watching the episode to prepare for this, I was like, oh, that's where that comes from. I thought I came up with that myself.
There it is. I will
I
say,
haven't said it to many people, but there are some.
That's fair. I think I use violently as a qualifier quite frequently, but more like in front of pleasant things like violently cute or violently delightful. Which I think this episode is.
Yes, it is violently delightful. That's a great description of it.
So good. It's like I've watched it 4 times in the last week, and now once we wrap up, I think I want to watch it again. Just to send
It
it off.
is and always will be. And I was telling Penny this earlier this week. So when I started watching the show on a weekly basis, it was after all of this. It was season 4 for Buffy, and it was season 1 for Angel. So I watched this one in the ways that we did back then. Like I would get a DVD, and they wouldn't send you the set; they would send you one of the DVDs. So I would periodically get a DVD, or I would see, repeats on the weeks that the show wasn't putting out new shows. This is one of those episodes that whenever it was on, I was watching it, and became my favorite episode very early. I remember watching this for the first time and just fell in love with the Spike character at the time, not really knowing his complete arc in season 2. I have to say, like, watching this again, I've watched it 4 times, just like you were like, I watched it,
Mm.
getting it a long time ago, like a month ago when I knew I was gonna do this show, and then I watched it again early last week, and then I watched it again right before Saturday when we were gonna
Oh,
meet
yeah.
up, and then I watched it but I watched it again today, and this morning when I woke up, I watched it really quickly, and it's just one of those every time you watch it, you catch another little waft of you talked
It's
about the layers of
true.
Spike, but there's a lot of layers to this whole entire episode. If you take the
Mhm.
Spike parts out, there's so much the
Oh,
other parts are so important.
yeah.
The layers of Cordelia, like it's like you're watching an onion of an episode, right? Like you're just peeling off a layer after layer after layer of the onion, which I think is very much metaphoric for the series, especially going forward as we start heading down a path. We see so many things that happen in this episode that sets our characters off, especially going through the end of season 3 and even season 4 of the other
Yeah.
series that happen. But I guess we'll wait till spoiler time to talk about some
Mm.
of those.
Yeah.
Well, and we did. Giles was off on a retreat, and we know he's been excluded. So I wonder what that was about.
Yeah.
I'm
Interesting.
so excited. But it's true. They're just little tidbits and breadcrumbs.
Before we get into trivia and stuff, I wanted to play this little bit and talk about it.
Hey. I was wondering when you were coming.
I'm not coming back. We're not friends. We never were. And I can fool Giles. And I can fool my friends. But I can't fool myself. Or Spike for some reason. What I want from you, I can never have. You don't need me to take care of you anymore. So I'm gonna go.
I don't accept that.
You have to.
Look. There's gotta be some way we can still see each other.
There is. Tell me that you don't love me.
Oh gosh.
And then it goes into everybody with their sad faces as they think about their heartbreak. And I think that line, "What I want from you, I can never have," is
Mm.
is so sad and deep and insightful and
Mhm.
heartbreaking. And I had not remembered that in this scene that Angel is like, "I don't accept that." I had
No.
remembered that he was like, "You're probably right, that's good for both of us," but no, he was like, "No, I have to keep seeing you," and she's the one who walks away. It's fascinating to me.
It's just so sad. It's like, and hearing it without seeing it, just hearing
Ugh.
their voices almost makes it
With
like I was getting choked up. And I was just like, what is happening to me right now?
Yeah,
Like,
"Tell
but
me that
it's,
you don't love me," and
ugh.
the look on his face when she says that is like, "Yeah, that's impossible." And
You can hear the pain and desperation, and it's quiet.
yeah,
It's not overdone. It's just so perfectly well played. And you know, knowing what comes in the future also makes this one hurt a little bit too. But, you know, Buffy having the wherewithal as a 17-year-old, as a teenager, and having the maturity to recognize that, you know, he truly cannot give her what she wants from him. She cannot have a future with him. That is just such a,
it's so
and
hopeless.
he's
yeah.
the 200, and again, he's the 260-year-old vampire, and she's a
Mhm.
17-year-old. And it strikes me, when you look at all the relationships in this, so we talked about, Xander and Willow specifically. two like words pop into my: selfish and selfless. And you watch the interesting thing, gosh, listening to that with just the music backdrop. Oh my gosh.
It's
How
intense.
um I think that Angel and Buffy throughout their first three seasons are kind of they never kind of cross the selfish like line. They're very
Mhm.
selfless in how they interact with each other, including in this episode when she's talking about like where she should go to college, and he tells her,
Mhm.
go far away. And then you like superimpose like Spike's possessive, like I'm never giving up on Drew relationship, and then all of these other kind of selfish relationships, either from one side or the other. And we talk about not doing the hard thing, except for in this very episode, the one person who does the hard thing is Buffy
Yeah.
Mhm.
because of Spike.
Well, she and Angel also both seem to have this almost superhuman ability of self-discipline and self-control.
Hmm.
And Angel has had centuries really to work on that and tame it and perfect it. And Buffy is just now learning how to navigate it, but she has such a big responsibility with this power that's been bestowed upon her. And it's so deeply sad for both of them for different reasons. With Angel, he has gone through essentially, centuries of self torment and loneliness, and he has found someone that he loves and now can't have. And Buffy, I really truly do not think that she ever loves anyone like she loves Angel. Like Angel is her true love. And I think Sarah Michelle Gellar has mentioned playing it that way. But it's just, you know, I don't think it's hyperbolic to describe it as tragic, because it just seems utterly tragic on both ends that they're deprived of this love that is palpable on screen and through their
Oh,
actions. There's a reason everyone's worried when Angel's back. Like they know how big of
Yeah.
a draw it is.
The
and
chemistry
it's
between the two of them is undeniable, and everyone around them has seen it, right? They've all seen what Buffy was like when she was first falling in love with Angel, and how, like, overwhelmed she was by it, and completely and utterly in love with him, and then how hurt she was after he turned, and that memory is, like, forefront of their minds whenever they see the 2 of them together. It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh,"
Ugh,
it's
that
like
that
seeing a
scene.
toddler carrying, like, a knife. You're like, "That's gonna
Mm.
end badly."
I,
Like,
I
oh
the
god.
scene with Giles where he lights her up and says he tortured me, and I like, and then to watch him kind of begrudgingly in this episode kind of forgive her for it, and I,
Mm.
it's just torturous. It's great to kind of see her play that out, like to listen to the weight of her friends. And by the way, when she says nobody else, I can fool Giles and I can fool, she's not fooling anybody.
No,
She's
none of
not.
them believe her.
So let's just get that out of the way. But you're right. Like again, like layers of an onion, right? Like she is a completely, like when she says that to him with that, um, it's not really a blankness. There's that tortured piece to it, but
She's
she
resolved.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
And
and the
quiet. The
great,
quiet
yeah.
is interesting
Oh,
because they're both so passionate, but they're both so reserved, and it's just a
yeah.
very calm, quiet conversation, and then she walks away, but
Oh,
the tragedy is, like, dripping off of it. The
Mhm.
sadness on both of their faces is so palpable, but they're both being, like, so calm and collected about it. It's an amazing scene.
with 2/3 of a season to go.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
It's only up from here. Uh, shall we turn to trivia?
Let's do it.
Sure.
All right, Jim, wanna read that first one?
All right, I love this one too. This is fantastic. Buffy's last words to Angel is "Tell me that you don't love me," which is exactly the same words that she said in I Only Have Eyes for You, in that murder suicide when they were when he was Angelus. But there was that one episode where they were reenacting a scene from someone else's life in the past, which I thought was a wonderful kind of bookend. They do such a nice job of tying, not doing the obvious things, but tying episodes to other episodes in a really
Yeah,
cool
there's
way
lots of
that for
little
the,
callbacks.
yeah, for the
It's really
fandom at the
cool.
time, for the fandom back in 98 that were on the message boards, like these little things were huge. And this is one of them.
And not being able to easily Google, like, that
Yeah.
sounds
Oh,
familiar. And was that
yeah.
in this episode? Like having to just,
And
and I remember arguing with people and like whether or not it was the same, either words, is it the same exact quote? And oh, never again. Oh, and we already kind of talked about this one, but
oh, shoot.
James Marsters. No, this is such a Spike thing to do too, and a James Marsters things to do, knowing him. But we mentioned how he burnt his hand rather badly while filming that scene where Spike wakes up after being passed out drunk and his hands on fire in the sun. And Marsters did not go to an on-set medic. He just acted through it and filmed, and then only went to a hospital directly after the shooting wrapped. So the entire time
He was in
he's on
horrible
screen in
pain.
this episode. Yeah, that makes it even more impressive.
I mean, look at the scene. Look at this when he's in the car. When he's in the car, his hand is clear. Like I looked at him like, oh, that's got to be a prosthetic,
It
and it
looks
Yeah.
very
horrible.
clearly is not a prosthetic. And I was like, oh,
That's
ooh,
a
yeah.
really serious burn.
The best part about it too, he pours the alcohol over it, which is funny, and
Yeah.
then takes the swig of the
And then
alcohol. And I was
drinks
like,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Pain relief, whatever.
Oh man.
Speaking of the car that Spike drives is a DeSoto Fireflight, 1959 car. It was originally meant to be in School Hard. It was supposed to be a Cadillac, also black. Of course, Spike would have a black car. But I like that they went with a different and less common car, less recognizable. I think it's cool.
all right, so we did talk about this one too, but the details of this are actually pretty cool. So Spike and Drusilla are definitely modeled off of Sid Vicious and his girlfriend Nancy Spungen, but the song "My Way" is really based off the Sex Pistols song, but not really, because in 1986, Gary Oldman played Sid Vicious in a fantastic movie called Sid and Nancy, and he sings "My Way." And the version that they're listening to and singing to at the end of this is actually the Gary Oldman cover because it was cheaper to get than the actual Sex
Of
Pistols
course.
cover. So
That's so funny.
And of course, it's originally a Frank Sinatra song.
yes,
that-
well,
yeah.
and actually when he's singing it at the beginning, it sounds like the Frank Sinatra version. And of course, when he's driving away, he's back to being Spike. But it's just so if by the way, if you hear Spike singing it at the end and it makes you want to watch this movie, watch it, because in many ways this is Gary Oldman's like spring out into like becoming a fantastic actor. But it's a
I love
really
him.
wonderful movie way back in the 80s that's worth seeing if you want to see Gary Oldman play Spike, because clearly that's what he was doing.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, and we did kind of talk about the title of this episode. So, fun fact, that title has been listed on different listings, books, DVD covers, menus on streaming services as Lovers Walk without an apostrophe, Lovers Walk with a lover apostrophe S, and Lovers apostrophe Walk. But the introduction to Rhonda Wilcox's Why Buffy Matters, The Art of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, actually says that the script does not carry an apostrophe, making for a short, sad, declarative sentence for a title. Therefore, the Lovers Walk, no apostrophes, seems the most definitive. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's very fitting.
I love that this is a conversation, though. I mean, this is how special you can tell the show is, because
people care
this is a
about every
conversation
detail.
I've had a few times. Yeah, for sure. for sure.
Well, and I have, come up with a habit of looking at how other languages titled the episodes and what that directly translated to. And some of them were very interesting. Like the Czech translation was Paths of Love. In Finnish, it was Love or Curse? Question
Hmm.
mark. French, it was Frustrated Loves. In German, it was Love and Other Troubles. And then in Italian and Japanese, it was kind of similar. The Path of Lovers and Walking Path for Lovers. And I was like, that's interesting. Like the Paths of Love, the Course of Love was another one. So
Yeah.
it's interesting
It
with,
gives it a very different feel.
right? I love it. Now I can't, I have to
Love and
look at
other
it every
troubles.
time now. Yeah.
Love and Other
Love
Troubles.
and
Love and
Other
other, it just
Troubles.
makes it Love and Other
It's
Troubles
so
with like Spike's
German,
face
also.
behind
Yeah.
the trouble, you know.
All
Oh,
right, guys,
God.
it's time to answer the difficult question that I know you're
So
going to have to
difficult.
really, really think about before you can answer. Does it still slay? Jim, you're first.
Oh, definitively this one slays. It's one of my top 5 slayings, and it slays a lot of the other episodes. It's so good. It's fantastic. This one absolutely slays.
Oh, yeah.
My second favorite episode of the season, and 2 of the episodes this season make it into my top 5, including maybe another one that I'm doing pretty soon.
Yeah.
This one
Interesting.
slays times
Yeah.
5.
Slay all day. Kara, I assume you agree.
Yeah, I love this. This, like I said, we both agreed top 5 for sure. It might be in my top 3. I am, once we sit down and go through a couple more season recaps, I'm going to try to put together a top 10. And I could rewatch this episode over and over again and never get sick of it. So
Yeah.
definitely still slays.
It has so many iconic moments, great lines, fantastic performance from James Marsters. It's plot critical. It sets a lot of things in motion, and I enjoy every minute of it. So, yeah. It's a
Mhm.
slay. It is a slay.
For sure.
Shall we get ourselves a blooming onion over at the Bronze?
Let's do it.
Woohoo!
Bronze things. Things of bronze.
And let's hear what some of our listeners think about this episode. Our first feedback comes from Jolene. And Jolene says, not one of the best episodes. So she disagrees with us there. But love having Spike back, and the dynamic between him and Joyce is so lovely. Spike was always a mummy's boy at heart. I do struggle watching this one, though, because what happens to Cordelia and Oz breaks my heart every time. Poor Cordelia in the hospital at the end, and she has 2 crying emojis. But we do get one of the greatest episodes in Buffy history as a result of it, so it's not all bad. That might be referring to next week's episode.
I think so.
Other notable events: Spike breaking the Welcome to Sunnydale sign again. Perfect. Buffy saying she doesn't want to see Angel anymore. Who is she kidding? Yeah, I don't think she said want. I think she said won't.
Yeah. Won't be coming
Won't
back.
be coming back, but I'm pretty sure she wants to. Spoiler, early signs of Willow turning to magic to fix a problem. Favorite quote from this one, Buffy. She saw these scores and her head spun around and
yeah.
exploded. Giles, I've been on the Hellmouth too long. That was metaphorical, yes?
Fair point.
I'm going to be
point,
talking
Giles.
about that one in a little bit, but that's for
Yep.
spoilers. From Facebook, this is Abby. I love this episode for so many reasons. Point 1, the Joyce and Spike moment is so familiar. Who hasn't come across a Joyce in their life before? So true. Boy, I wish I actually came across Joyce, though. Anyway, sorry. Someone
know.
someone you don't know, but find yourself completely spilling your guts to. It's just fantastic. Point 2, I hate the Willow Xander scandal. I've named it Zandival.
Zendoval.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's coming. We'll be using
I love that
later.
crossover.
Yeah.
Awesome, Abby. And I'm just happy to see its demise. Amen to that. Number 3, holy childhood trauma. I was afraid of Rebar for the rest of my upbringing. So
Yeah.
gosh, that scene is so hard to
Yeah.
watch.
It's
And
visceral.
number
Yeah.
4,
Ugh,
yeah, oh, and the fact that she actually went through it, oh, good lord,
I
when she
know.
was 5.
Because
Okay.
Josh Whedon's a
Yeah.
dick.
Yeah, he
Oh,
is.
man,
Anyway.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I'm going with. Point 4, Spike's drunken speech to Buffy and Angel will forever be one of my all-time favorite moments. I maybe loves bitch, but at least I'm man enough to admit it. Amen, Abby. Awesome, awesome feedback.
That is such a good line. Next up, we have our feedback from Becky. She says, "Hello, all. Thoughts on season 3, episode 8. I
Holy
love
cow.
Spike's return and that they brought him in the same way they did last time, blowing into town and taking the Sunnydale sign out. James Marsters is on fire in this episode."
Literally.
Yep, he does drunk better than anyone. He brings a level of fun to an otherwise really sad episode, except for his gross comment to Willow about not having a woman in a while. Ew. Yeah. Yeah, that was icky.
That was a little
She said,
rapey. Yeah.
yes, that's what I was going to say earlier. That's what I wrote in notes. So I was like, rapey, ew.
I had
That
rapey there
was,
too, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, super profound note taking that time. But she goes on to say, awesome Buffy scored high on her SATs. I'm glad they didn't go the quote unquote ditzy blonde failing test stereotype. It was interesting to watch her contemplate actually having a future. That's true. We didn't talk about that too much, but it was interesting seeing that struggle brought more to the forefront. She said, when Spike's face changes, is this the first time they've shown, quote unquote, the change on screen?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
remember. I
I
don't
don't think
think
They've
so.
it
We've
is.
definitely
seen
shown it
Angel.
before. Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah,
we see it with Darla back in season 1?
yeah,
Yeah.
We
yes.
And
see
with
her
I feel like
Angel.
we've
actually.
seen Angel once or twice.
That's true.
Although I
Maybe
will
it just
tell
stands
you,
out because it's Spike.
they do it, I think, twice in this episode, and I was kind of transfixed on how they did it. This was the first
Mm-hmm.
episode where I was tangibly like trying to watch. It looked like they were doing some sort of split screen thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
I will say that it did stand out in this episode maybe more than other ones.
The effects get better as as the seasons go on and
Unless you're a
technology is
werewolf.
changing. Yeah. Oh, the werewolf. Yeah. The werewolves always look bad.
They're so terrible. Oh gosh. She goes on to say, love the idea of the bowling date. Fun fact about me. I used to be in a company bowling league. I have my very own custom Scooby-Doo bowling ball, shoes,
Of
etc.
course you do, Becky.
That's
Awesome.
fantastic. Said, I wasn't the best bowler, but I sure looked good doing it, with a winky face. She says, oh my gosh, Cordy mentioning how she just got the photos developed, that makes me feel super old, and it was a big deal back in the day to have your photo in a crush's locker. Very true.
Oh gosh, so
Another
true.
make me feel old moment was when Buffy said, be kind, rewind. VHS tapes and video stores, where have all the good things gone? Oh man.
I don't miss
Quite,
VHS tapes. I'll be honest about that.
Oh
they were
gosh.
kind of a pain, but
Clunky.
video
This
stores
next
were
point,
super
Penny. Oh
fun.
my gosh.
Oh yeah, I am so glad they are. That's fantastic. I am so glad they're brightening up Willow's wardrobe. Love her little sweaters, skirts, and tights. She looks especially adorable in the fuzzy pink sweater.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
This is why I love Podcastica, right? Like I
Mhm.
love the different points of view and the different perspectives, and I absolutely adore. We can slosh on it and then have people go, wait a second. I think the
Mhm.
exact opposite of you, and we do it in such a
Yep.
safe way. So
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, proceed.
We
It
love
is
the
nice.
feedback. Yeah.
And then she said Giles being proud of Buffy's SAT scores with a little heart, and the mayor discussing Spike. Have they met? I don't recall the mayor ever mentioning Spike
No,
before. Did I miss
no.
something? No, he's just heard of him
I
through
love it. I
his
had it in my notes
connections.
actually. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
love the fact that the mayor in these brief little scenes like the depth that we get of the
Mhm.
mayor from just him saying, "Oh yeah, I've heard of Spike from season 2," when we heard of the mayor just a little bit back then too. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
You didn't miss anything. That's just awesome
Nope.
writing.
She said, I wish I could pull off workout gear the way Sarah Michelle Gellar does. Yeah, they did a close-up of her
I cannot
in
comment on
workout
her
gear.
workout gear in this episode.
Yeah,
It was
that's
like,
wise, Jim.
well, I'll comment on it, but it was like a boob shot. Like, it
Yeah.
was so intentional, just right. And I was just like, oh, okay. Yep. That's what we're looking at. And she looks great.
Speaking of boob shots, though, did you guys catch the thing on the wall at the magic spell place?
No, what?
I did
I'm
not.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Well,
Go
now
back
I
and
need to go
watch it
back and watch
Okay.
it.
because I caught it on the fourth time I watched it. It's when they
gosh.
flashed to Spike. I can't tell you because I'm viscerally now seeing your reaction to it.
Okay.
And
All right.
it's going to be amazing, and it
Oh,
does relate to
man.
something that we just talked about, and that's all I'm gonna say
Interesting.
about that.
I'm
Okay.
gonna have to go back and watch. She said, "Great job by Sarah Michelle Gellar acting out Buffy's struggles with the possibility of moving on, and everyone telling her there is no reason for her to stay. I think that is a real burden for teenagers, graduating and figuring out how to navigate the big changes that
Amen.
follow." Yep. She said, LOL Alexander reminding Willow of how love spells don't really work out for him. It's the understatement of the century. Allison Hannigan really shone in this episode. She went toe-to-toe with James Marsters and did it well.
Amen.
Spike's whole monologue about Drew was brilliant, and how each new scene he was repeating the same sob story to a new character. That is 100% how it is dealing with someone with a broken heart. Best
That's
line. She just left. Didn't even care enough to cut my head off or set me on fire. I mean, is that too much to ask? Oh, Spike. The best moments were between Joyce and Spike. I love how comfortable Spike felt with her to just pour his heart out. They did a great job of setting it up like Joyce is in danger when Buffy calls, but then segues to her and Spike at the table drinking hot chocolate. Then Angel showing up, and he also thinks Joyce is in danger but can't get in the house. Spike taunting Angel and making faces behind Joyce's back is comedy gold. Another episode of great pairings from the writers, Joyce and Spike, Cordy and Oz. I like it when they switch it up. Then she
Great
said,
point.
I love this. Oz being able to smell Willow. I can't decide if it's gross or sweet.
A little of both.
A little of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little of both.
But he does note that he doesn't want to be able to do it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
true Oz
I really
fashion,
agree.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Every moment bringing Spike to reminisce was hilarious. I laughed out loud when Spike walks past the bench and says, "We killed a homeless victim on this bench." That is a great scene. And finally, she said, Spike dropped some truth bombs on Buffy and Angel. His honesty and wisdom were spot on and well delivered.
So, in true Becky fashion, there's more. Here we go. The basement scene. When Cordy fell and the camera panned over to show her injury was intense. Stupid Willow and Xander. I am so glad this storyline is over, for the most part anyway. Anyone
Amen.
else think Vampire Lenny looked like Vince Vaughn? Okay, now I have to go back and watch that
I have
too.
to go back and watch that,
Yep. Buffy's 2 vampires at once kill was awesome. I am not buying Angel not being able to get that door off himself. Yeah, that seemed weak. Sneaky for the showrunners to show a funeral after Cordy passes out in the basement. Yeah, I thought that was a little cheesy.
So sneaky.
Charisma nails that moment in the hospital with Xander. Yeah, we talked about that. Very sweet BFF conversation between Willow and Buffy at the cemetery. Yay for Buffy telling Angel it's time to move on. Not only has Buffy gained confidence with her book smarts, but also emotionally. Very mature for her to realize that she and Angel need to have boundaries. Who knew Spike would be right? Was a little annoying when Angel pushed back instead of respecting her wishes, but I'm so proud of her for staying strong and walking away. Great shots of everyone and their grief at the end of the episode, but the best was Spike leaving town singing an amazing cover of My Way. Old Spike is back. So excited for Anya's arrival next week. Yeah, we are.
Anya, who's Anya?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll find out. Favorite quotes when discussing bowling, Cordy. I thought we were doing something classy. Xander, what's classier than bowling? When Spike is peeking in Angel's window and waiting until Angel leaves the room to say, "I'm not afraid of you." Buffy talking about Joyce's reaction to her SAT scores. I think she said her head exploded, and Giles says, "I've been on the Hellmouth too long." That was metaphorical, yes? The magic shop lady, after Spike lists all the awful things he wants to curse Angel with. "We don't carry leprosy." Joyce, when all hell breaks loose at her home. "I'm confused again. Willow is a witch? Xander is a witch too?" Cordy worrying about Xander and Willow. "What if they've been kidnapped by Colombian drug lords?" Spike when Buffy wants to hurry up and get the spell over with. "Sod the spell. Your friends are at the factory." Love how blasé Marsters is when saying that. This was an excellent episode. Looking forward to Anya's arrival next episode. Until then, smiley face. Have a great week. Grr, arg.
Arg.
That delivery of "saw the spell, your friends are at the factory" is pretty fantastic.
It's so good. We have a couple of voicemails. I'll play Steve first. Steve, who was on last week.
Hello, Still Slaying. This is Steve, and it was such a privilege and an honor to get to record with y'all last week. But now here we are at Season 3, Episode 8, Lover's Walk. Oh, the dreaded SATs, yes. Yes, Cordelia, there is a moron who would come back to Sunnydale. His name is Spike. I love Giles. That was metaphorical, right? I lived on the Hellmouth way too long when Buffy talks about her mom's reaction to her SAT scores. And the sectional is in the wherever Angel is has been repaired since last week. Totally forgot that Spike attacks this lady. Oh goodness, the blood on his mouth? Evil church. We all agree, Willow, this us thing is blah. I don't think we've ever seen a chaos demon, or do we ever get to see a chaos demon? I don't know. I don't remember. Spike just said he hadn't had one in weeks, and I was about to say, what about the shopkeeper? And then he said it for me. Good job. I think that came out right. They never do the uninviting thing for Spike. I guess they didn't. Hey, I'm not sure. Does Joyce know Spike is a vampire or not? Joyce's befuddlement here is just, I guess she does know Spike is a vampire, and Angel is too. So Oz can smell Willow with his werewolf nose. But does he still have like the strength and stuff? Probably not. Oh, and Spike hits the nail on the head with this love speech about it's in the blood, it's screaming and stuff. Great monologue by James Marsters right there. Oh, and of course, this is the moment that Cordelia and Oz walk in when they're kissing. Ooh, that looks bad. Rebar through and through, but hopefully it missed all the organs stuff. Ooh. And Buffy gets a twofer. 2 vampires, 1 steak. Many times this series is this magic shop get messed up. Just as many times as Buffy's house, I'm sure. In this fight, you can really see the difference between Sarah Michelle Gellar and the height of her stunt double. Notice in this viewing, this show does this a lot, where we have a character almost die, and then they cut straight to a funeral or a graveside ceremony, something like that, only for us to discover that the character is fine. So Cordelia breaks up with Xander, and this starts this long string between Buffy and Angel of, we can't be together, oh no, we can be together, oh no, we can't be together. That's going to carry on for the rest of this season. I hope that's not too spoilery. If it is, you can cut it out. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, man.
That was awesome.
And he did such a great job last week. He was amazing.
Yeah, he was great.
Week, so.
He was really funny. We're definitely going to have him back on. That was really fun. All right. And then we got another voicemail. This one is from Anwen.
Oh.
Hi, Penny and Cara. Some feedback for you for Lover's Walk. I find it's quite uncomfortable, the whole Willow and Xander thing. Like I can kind of see how it happened. They're very, very close, and then all of a sudden they decide they like each other. But I agree with Willow. This whole us thing is bleh. I find it quite gross that Xander seems to relish it and to not think that he needs to stop flirting and kissing. He kind of wants the best of both worlds, and she's really uncomfortable, but he still kind of pushes it. That does not sit well with me as much as it did last time. And him breaking Cordy's heart is just, ugh. She was so into him, and it's just horrible. I love the return of Spike. Can vampires actually get drunk? I don't really know if they have a actual physiological explanation for that in this universe, but I love that he acts that way. He's pretty funny. I love how he says to Buffy and Angel, you'll never be friends, you'll be in love till it kills you both. And then he goes on a bit more, and then I may be loves bitch, but at least I'm man enough to admit it. He's so awesome. Quite a few more injuries in this episode. We had Giles with that pretty serious head injury last week, and then now Xander in this one. People are constantly getting knocked and bashed about the head, and I know from personal experience, having had 2 concussions, that you don't just get up and recover and get on with your day. It affects you for months and months. Anyway, it's fiction. Very serious injury for Cordy. The first time I watched years ago, I remember thinking that she actually might be dead, and it's probably the most serious injury we've seen from one of the main cast, and a classic fake out with the funeral right after the scene of her being impaled, and then of course it's not her, so that was some pretty cute filmmaking. Season 3 is so good, might be my favourite season of them all. So much goodness to come. Can't wait. Bye.
Bye, Anwen. So good to hear from you. And sorry about the concussions. All right, that is the end of the main section of the podcast.
Stay tuned for the Watcher's Diaries, please, if you want to hear the spoilery discussion, and I suspect we're going to have a ton of spoilery discussion.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can find all of our contact information at podcastica.com, or you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podcastica, or Instagram at stillslayingcast. You can also find us on Facebook on our Still Slaying Cast Facebook page, and you can send an email or a recorded voice message to stillslayingfeedback@gmail.com.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be feedback. If you just want to send us an email and ask a question or pose an idea or whatever, like, we like hearing from people, so please write. Also at podcastica.com, along with finding all this information, so you don't have to just remember what we've just told you, you can find links to our social media pages and all the other Podcastica shows, and there are so many of them. There's just a lot of great content on there. If you are looking for a podcast to listen to, Jason, who runs the network, just put together a list of every TV show that Podcastica podcasts have ever covered. It's up on the Facebook page, and I think he's going to put it up on the website as well. So if you're looking for like the next show you want to watch, like, that's a great list to look at and be like, oh, Podcastica, covered, I don't know, Fall of the House of Usher on Strange Indeed. Maybe I'll watch that and listen to the podcast. I recommend it because it was a great coverage. I was looking at the list today and realized there was a couple of shows I didn't even realize Podcastica had covered. So I was like, oh, hey, maybe I'll go back and listen to that now. So that's pretty cool.
I need to go back and look at that list. I didn't realize it was already posted.
An impressive list, yeah. I just have to say, too, if I were to ever point to any of the shows, since I've been here listening to episodes since the beginning, and the first show that I listened to is the very first, it was the Walking Dead cast, which is now, of course, called The Cast of Us for The Last of Us, which is not just for The Last of Us, but for all of the Walking Dead shows as well. And it's hitting like a sweet spot right now of like this blend of why I initially started listening in 2010 because of the original The Walking Dead. And now they started from season 1 and are currently in the midst of season 2, which is one of my favorite seasons with Shane, and I loved it because they just I haven't listened to it yet. What did they do just recently? Was it the Return of the Living Dead?
Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And Karen, OG Karen, came back to podcast
fun.
with, which is sort of, I guess, kind of like having Spike and Angel and Buffy slaying together.
Yeah.
And then we're steamrolling towards, of course, in a week and a half, we have the first, maybe only first season of the Michonne and Rick show coming up, which they'll be kicking into in high gear, and nobody will do it better than Jason and Lucy and company. It's, they cover it in just an amazing way. And so I highly recommend if you're listening to this and you're looking for something else, take a look at the OG Cast of Us. That's a fantastic podcast that goes way back to 2010. And there's a ton more, but I'm not going to get into them this week. Maybe some other week when I'm going to be doing the show.
Yeah. I was like, I have been re-listening to I believe it was on the Cast of Us feed, the coverage of the Amazon Prime show The Power.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Yep, I had watched it just kind of, not really paying attention and hadn't had a chance to listen to the podcast. So I rewatched it and started listening to the podcast again. And I forgot how much I enjoyed that show. And it's so much fun to listen to the podcast episodes and pick up on or hear things that I did not pick up on in the slightest. It just really enhances your viewing experience. That sounds like an ad, and I guess it kind of is, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like, you just get so much more out of these shows. So that's been a fun one to go back and re-listen to.
And if you like what we do, hit like, follow, and subscribe. Leave a rating or review. Please do that. It really helps the algorithm.
Yes, and next time, season 3, episode 9, The Wish is up. And you are definitely going to want to tune in for that one.
I hear you guys are going to have an incredible, incredible guest.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. We'll find out next week.
Thanks, everyone, and it's just you belong in a good old-fashioned college with keg parties and boys.
Not here with hellmouths and vampires.
Not really seeing the distinction.
I do love that. 'Cause we'll see next season.
It's true, yeah. And Buffy's already been to a college party with boys and keg parties, and there was a snake demon.
Yeah, that was pretty terrifying.
Again, another one of those connections,
to a frat party after that.
Yeah, seriously. All right, that is the end of the non-spoiler section. If you want to avoid spoilers, just stop listening right now. 3, 2, 1, that's enough time. On to the Watcher's Diaries, and there's so much to talk about.
There are so many things.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah, that's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
I'm going to start with the one piece of spoilery trivia, which is that this is the last time in the series and on Angel that Buffy, Angel, and Spike are all in the same scene together.
So
sad.
sad.
That's the end of that.
That's insane. That is
Really
insane.
is.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
They're so good together too. I just love the way that Spike also ends up on Angel. That is one of it's even though it's just so funny.
I mean,
not
super
funny.
spoilery, right? If you made it to this part and you heard that, like, just erase it out of your brain because you won't want to know that.
Well, I didn't say how.
Yeah, no, but hey, this is the spoilery section, so if you heard that, that's on you.
This is anything goes. Anything goes. So let's talk about Willow and witchcraft, right?
Lord.
So, like, she shows the beginning signs of an addict when Xander tries to stop her, and he's like, this isn't a good idea. Evil church, this is witchcraft. She gets defensive and she lies. She's like, it's chemistry, and she's all like angry at him for pointing it out. Like when he's like, you really think you need magic to stop feeling lusty about me? And she's like, not now. And it's funny because I never liked the addiction magic storyline in season 6. I think it's handled really weirdly.
Yeah.
But there is something to the idea of an addiction. I just didn't like where they went with it then. In that she, there's a lot of different episodes where Willow talks about how she was a nerd and she was overlooked and she always felt like she was a dork and she didn't fit in and she wasn't popular and all that stuff. And magic is this thing that she can do that no one else can do, and it gives her power, and she doesn't want to ever let it go. She loves the power.
She loves it
because
way
she's
too
so insecure. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of any time that somebody who is young and not a fully developed person gets their hands on something that is powerful, like a gun or a car or the ability to control somebody else's life in some way. And they're just too young and inexperienced to use it wisely.
Yeah.
And what she's trying to do could go wrong in so many ways.
So many ways. And she has seen it go wrong in so
Yeah,
many ways.
personally
Yeah.
experienced it. Yeah.
Exactly
She
the
has
same
been
thing she's
involved.
doing.
It's
Like,
wild. And
watching her
that
manically continue to do it while it's
Mhm.
such a again, I don't know how far ahead they've planned this. It certainly seems like seeds like that they keep
Right?
planting with her.
It
And I don't know
felt
the answer to
the
that.
same. It
Uh,
felt like
Yeah.
seeing her react that way. I was immediately transplanted to watching her and Tara argue over Willow resorting to magic to fix things, and Tara cautioning her on it and bringing it up, and Willow getting defensive with Tara. And she just it's so hard seeing it this early on and knowing where it goes, but that dependency that she has to immediately resort to magic to make her life easier and to do it without other people's knowledge or consent is such a problem and such a red flag that becomes a glaring red flag that blows up in her face essentially in the future. And watching her behavior in this episode so closely mimic, especially her season 6 arc was kind of chilling. Really watching it, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. It's so not pretty. And we
Yeah.
see flashes of the when Willow gets a taste for vengeance and how cruel she can be and lashing out. We have already seen that a few times in the series, and this episode really sticks out with that. It's just
Yeah.
oof, so painful.
It's hard to believe that they really were planning that far ahead because
Mm-hmm.
at this show every year it was like, even though it was pretty popular, it was always on the verge of cancellation,
Yeah.
right? Like sci-fi and other types of genre shows back then were like, they were never successful enough for the networks to be wholeheartedly behind them. And so it was always like, is it coming back next year? So I doubt they had like a 7-season
Well,
plan.
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but of course, I think I believe at the end of this season, this is when the network started to split apart. Like CW was always
No, that happened after season
okay,
5.
Yeah.
but correct me if I'm wrong though.
Yeah.
The channel was always kind of struggling and always kind of looking.
Yeah, it was a new
Yeah,
network.
so I just feel like, and there's a couple of things like they kind of accidentally fall into this stuff, right? Because I think the other thing that kind of really struck me about this is we do get to see the chaos demon play out. We get that fallback. I mean, we get to see it actually happen. And
Yeah.
there's no way they
Oh,
planned for that because Spike
I
wasn't a
love it.
regular on the show, and at this point, he was not going to be a regular on the show. Maybe a recurring character, but I don't think they were going to recur like this story. But
I
they
think
they
they
yeah.
had
So yeah, the slime and antlers thing was just a throwaway, and then they had to like find a way to make it real.
whatever writer or intern or whoever they had assigned to keeping track of continuity and all the callbacks
uh,
did an excellent job. And they pull
Yeah.
from certain, I think there are even some season 1 things that end up coming back that obviously were not planned in season 1, but the way they integrate them is just done so well. Like it was hard not to say this. I know we all were like, "Oh, the pink fuzzy sweater comes back."
Yeah.
Cuz the way that what is it in the initiative in season 4 when Spike has that chip planted in his head and he is physically unable to bite Willow, and he makes that comment to her about so funny. She's just like, you don't want to bite me, like I'm not biting, like basically being like, am I not appealing? And he's like consoling her, and he's like, I wanted to bite you one time, you were wearing that cute pink number, which is in this episode. And I love that callback so much because we go from Willow in this episode kind of twistedly consoling Spike to then in that episode with Willow kind of twistedly, or Spike twistedly consoling Willow. And God, that's fun. You know, that the way Spike is with the initiative is definitely one of the perks of that storyline.
Oh, season 4 has problems,
Yeah.
but
It's fun.
it has so many fantastic
Mhm.
moments. And
It's very world
so much is
expanding.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I know a lot of people don't like Riley. I happen to like Riley.
Mhm.
It's funny, when it was airing and I first was watching season 4, I thought Riley was lame and boring.
Mm.
But once he was off the show, when I would rewatch it, I'd be like, "Oh, Riley."
Buffy
Like, I
needed
loved him so much after
Riley.
that.
Like, well, and it's just so interesting with season 4 too, because we know what's to come with more of Spike and Buffy and the development of their relationship. And then when season 4 begins and season 1 of Angel begins, and we see kind of the resolution for the most part of Buffy and Angel's relationship. And the foreshadowing in this episode when Spike is describing how they're not friends, and that whole line essentially ends up describing how Buffy and Spike's relationship will end up. And it's so interesting how you mentioned that you hadn't remembered Angel's character kind of resisting at this point and not wanting to let go. I didn't remember that either, because I spent most of the time with Graduation in my head
Yeah.
and Angel making that difficult decision to leave, and I was like, "Oh, this makes it so much more painful." Like,
Yeah.
just that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Prom, when he breaks up with
I
her.
hate that episode. I don't hate it, but I hate that moment because it just hurts. It's just so sad. But ugh, so much to come.
I mean, even Buffy is like, it's the right
Yeah.
thing, even though it's killing her.
They know, and they're very mature. It's a very big contrast, like you mentioned, Jim, with Xander and Willow, who have no self-control, and we see Buffy and Angel just kind of painfully exerting whatever self-control they can. Ugh, so sad.
Speaking of Spike and Buffy, and I might be remembering this wrong, so please tell me if I do. But if I remember correctly, in that season 5 episode where we meet the Chaos Demon, there we get a stream of like flashbacks in that. And correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't Drusilla start dating the Chaos Demon because she's pissed off because she believes that Spike is in love
Is
with
in love with
Buffy?
Buffy.
I don't know if she believes he's in love, but she says like the Slayer is in his mind, and that that like her presence is part of him now.
I took it as she could sense he was falling for her, maybe, or too involved. But I haven't watched that episode in a while either.
Well, I love that too, because I mean, it's clear that those two actors are really good friends. And, James
Mhm.
Marsters tells a lot of like interesting stories, like his girlfriend and her boyfriend, and David Boreanaz, and like the fun little interplay about like the crushes that like their significant others had at the time. But it does beg the different. And we've talked about this, or you guys have talked about this for sure, about how Spike played from episode 1, that he was constantly like Buffy was like his he was gonna play it like he was interested in Buffy from jump. And it does
Yeah.
make me wonder, as Drusilla comes back into play in later seasons, like if those two actors didn't get together and work that subplot out even before they shared it maybe
That is
with the writers,
interesting.
because I just, every time I watch this now, when I see Buffy and Spike interact, it's hard not to think about, ultimately where they end up. And of
Oh,
course,
yeah. Well, they have so much
Yeah.
chemistry.
but
Like,
I mean,
I
Spike,
The
think
banter
but
between the
to
two
be
of them is
fair,
always
like Marsters
fantastic.
has chemistry with everybody. I mean,
that's
everybody that
true.
he
Yeah.
interacts with, it seems like, and I feel bad for, the actors that didn't get a chance to like share a lot of screen time with him, because he really does add that color. He adds
Mhm.
like Willow's clothing. He
He adds a lot
adds
of
a
color.
lot of color.
In season 4, we're gonna get a lot of really fun Spike and Giles, and then Spike and Xander
I
Oh,
moments, and they're nonstop fun. When Spike wants to kill himself at one point, and Xander's like, "That you didn't trust me to do it for you."
Yep.
It's just like this twisted, weird non-friendship
It's
that they have is just
fantastic.
so
Well, and
cute.
it allows for more comedy because Spike is so different than Angel. Angel's purpose and his role as a character, it just doesn't allow for that much lightheartedness in general. And
No.
then when you bring Spike in to kind of play off with the Scoobies, especially once you have the introduction of Anya, it's just so much fun.
yeah.
There are so many episodes coming up that made me laugh out loud so much, and I cannot wait all the way to season 6. We have to wait till season 6 to talk about Tabula Rasa. That
Oh,
episode
Oh,
is
I love Tabula Rasa.
fantastic, but
It's such a good episode.
it's
But season 4 will bring us Something Blue,
yes, which is
which is one of the funniest
so
episodes of
good.
all time of any TV
Oh
show.
yeah, there's some great
Jim has a
ones.
look on his face like he's trying to remember which episode that is. It's the one
It's
where Buffy and Spike
Thanksgiving.
get
Is it
engaged.
right? Is
oh,
it Thanksgiving or is that different?
No,
Wait,
no, Thanksgiving is called Pangs.
oh
It's
my
the
that's
one
right.
where
gosh!
Willow casts the "My Will Be Done" spell, and Buffy and Spike end up
That's
engaged.
right. Damn it,
Oh,
Willow. That
it's so funny. And Giles is blind, and Buffy
Oh
and Spike are making out, and Xander's like, "Can I be
yeah.
blind
Yeah.
too?"
That is a great one. Oh man.
um,
Gosh, this show. It's so well rounded.
And then they're so mean to each other afterward when Spike is like, "I'm not the one who wanted wind beneath
Oh
my
yeah.
wings for the first dance." It's just so funny.
It's so good. I cannot wait. Oh my gosh. Well, and Spike just he really does bring such an energy to the show. And it's only gonna get better. But I do think I don't know if we talked about this before, but how the Sunnydale, obviously the first 2 episodes he crashes through the Sunnydale sign, and then in the season finale or the series finale in Chosen, he destroys, a completely different sign, and then
yeah.
the actual town sign is still standing at the end,
Mhm.
and it's such a nice callback. And ugh, I love that James Marsters is such a force that it essentially made the showrunners keep him coming back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's undeniable in this role. Like, there's nobody that can watch, 5 minutes of Spike on screen and be like, "Oh, that character's not that great." Like, everybody loves him all the
See,
time.
that's
It's
why
true.
he's never been Sid Vicious to me. He's always been Billy Idol because Billy Idol's always been kind of
Yeah.
that lovable, like punk, um, still
Yeah.
around and jokey and funny. I got to
Well,
pull
and it
some
makes
Angel into
sense.
this. Um, Angel, I just watched this episode, which is kind of funny, but Angel gets some rebar through him, and he says to
Yeah.
Cordelia, it's really hard to think straight with all this rebar.
Mhm.
And she goes, actually, I do. Benefits of a Sunnydale education, which is funny because he wouldn't know about that. And
Mm-mm.
then it's hard not to, the mayor, talks about, um, pretty much selling his soul. And he's got such an
Mhm.
interesting kind of storyline that none of it's told yet. And we, of course, find out that he he not only is the mayor, but he founded the town hundreds of years before and sold his soul to a group of demons, which is the we he keeps talking about. But
He's
that
so
story,
creepy.
because he's constantly saying we, and I remember the first time I watched this, I'm like, the hell's he talking about? Um,
Who is the
yeah,
we? Yeah.
yeah. So watching this kind of unfold in season 3 is really what makes season 3 special, which would be more special if we got to see more of Spike. But I'll take what
I
we can get.
Yeah.
know.
Um,
Ugh.
and then I do love that Cordy says, who would ever move out and come back? And that's actually exactly what she does. She moves to LA.
I
Yeah, she
know.
leaves and she does not
And
come
she
back.
she never ever comes back. But I do
Cordy,
have a
she's like,
special, when you were talking about cats earlier, I do have a
Yeah.
special little thing to maybe tie this whole thing together. So I did a
Mm.
lot of Spike watching this week. James Marsters does lots of interviews. He loves talking about this character. And they asked him like where he, you know, who did he base this character on? And he actually poo-pooed a lot of the Sid Vicious stuff. And he said, that's what other
Mhm.
people told me to do. And he said, the funny thing is, the person that I looked to the most was Malcolm McDowell. And Malcolm McDowell did a movie called Cat People. And it's the strange
Oh
ass
God.
movie.
God.
But he
I've
said,
seen
he's
it.
like,
It is the weirdest
so,
movie.
and now I apologize to both of you because you're both going to go back and watch this now. He said, I got my whole demeanor and my walk from Malcolm McDowell in the Cat People. And
Oh,
God.
awesome.
and so and I've just I mean, it is the strangest freaking movie you're ever going to see. But he did say that he
That's so
modeled his
funny.
voice after all of the voices in Monty Python, and that he never
Nice.
he never really picked one until Anthony Head came up to him one
Until
day
Anthony
and
had made
said,
him.
listen, I can't go back to England having you doing what you do. So Anthony had spent 6 months working with him while they were shooting the show on getting a good dialect. And again, you guys mentioned this, like when Anthony Head reverts back in help me,
Band
Band
Candy.
Candy, he uses Spike's voice. Like he is Spike's voice, the Spike that I know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this Spike sort of rolls into in the
It's that accent. It's that working
yeah,
class British
yeah,
accent instead of the
somewhat Cockney,
posh
but not
I went to
quite. But
Oxford
yeah, yeah.
accent.
It
Yeah.
the minute he started talking, I was like, oh my God, he's talking like Spike. Let's do this. Let's do this more. And
So
I just
Yeah.
watched
clever.
him in his episode. And just a side note, we don't talk a whole lot about Giles, who's very subtle and subdued and awesome in this. And he does get to kind of unwrap some other characters, but he is in so many other things. And of course, most people know him from Ted Lasso. But he has an episode in Doctor Who in season
Oh, that's a great
2
episode.
where he is the headmaster
Yeah.
at this school. And so there's a lot of CGI. He never goes to the CGI part of it. He acts like the human version of the CGI. And it is unbelievable how amazing his face acting is and his movements are in
Yeah.
that. And you get to really appreciate how amazing an actor he is, because honestly, like he has to be the straight man in a lot of these episodes, but subtly he is
Yeah.
just
And he gets a lot of
yeah,
exposition. He has a lot of wordy things that he has to do, and he delivers them very gracefully.
yeah.
It is fun to watch him in Ted Lasso and go back
Oh,
and forth between
It's
Giles
so different.
and Rupert Mannion.
Yep.
Because Rupert Mannion is so despicable, and Rupert Giles is so lovable, and it's just amazing how well he plays both of
yeah. What's
them.
amazing though is in Ted Lasso, he has these moments where he gives that character depth, where you can see, I don't necessarily want to be this asshole. And you get these little
Mhm.
glimpses of it. And when you get that glimpse, then you go, oh, that's what everybody falls for. I just fell for that, because then he reverts right back to being the asshole. And
Yep. He has a twinkle.
yeah.
He does.
That it's very appealing, and I've known people like this in real life who are so
So
charismatic
many.
that you just fall under their spell
Boy.
Yep.
against your better
Just
judgment,
turn on the
and then
news.
it's only when you get distance from them
Yeah.
that you're like, "Oh, that person's an asshole."
Seriously.
It's an amazing gift
Yeah.
if you're one of those people. I have one friend who has it, who is not an asshole when he's not being sparkly, but he just has this thing where like everyone in the world is his friend. I remember we went to the movies, and I had gotten my tickets in advance. It was when Batman Begins premiered, and they were sold out for like days. And this friend shows up to meet us at the movie theater, and we're like, "You didn't buy your ticket in advance?" And he's like, "No, I'll go talk to someone." And he came back with a ticket. And I was like, "How did that happen?" And he's like, "Oh, I just asked the guy, and they had an extra ticket, and they gave it to me for free." And I was like,
Jeez.
I don't understand having that kind of charm or that kind of confidence. It's like a superpower. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's like witchcraft.
And Rupert Mannion has that like twinkly, sparkly, people love him thing. That's how he got. Well, this is not the Ted Lasso Revisited podcast, which you can listen to on Podcastica.
True.
They are doing a rewatch of Ted Lasso as well.
I will say the only other note that I had that was slightly spoilery, every time I rewatch this episode and Oz realizes that he can smell Willow and smell her fear, it makes me think about the episode where he realizes that there's something going on with her and Tara.
Willow and Tara.
Because he smells Willow on Tara, and I'm just like, woo, woo.
Oops, that's not always going to be a good thing.
You just wait, Oz. Man, that's terrible. The 2 times that I remember him associating, like, being able to smell her, he finds that she's been cheating on him. Well, that...
I don't think Tara counts as cheating.
I would say maybe emotionally-ish, but not quite. But...
I mean, he left town. He has no right
No,
to
he did bad.
any of Willow's.
I cannot stand that storyline with that... What is her name? Does it start with a V?
Veruca?
Yes. Werewolf. Like, I don't care for her. Anyway, that's a whole other...
Yeah, we'll get there.
Discussion. But yeah, I just, every time I see this one, it makes me jump to that episode. It's like, oh, Oz.
Yeah, the smelling thing.
Yep. Ugh.
I have
good time.
One last note, and this is
all right.
This is the sad one for me, and we've talked about it actually 2 or 3 times, and it just hit me. It just hit the first time I watched it in these rewatches, and it's when Buffy is talking about Joyce's reaction to her SAT scores and says, I think something about her head exploding, and I immediately went, oh,
shoot. Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, obviously, that's a really poor metaphoric way to say it, but in essence, that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, she basically has an embolism, or an aneurysm.
One of the things that struck me is every interview I've ever seen with James Marsters, he talks about his favorite episode. And the irony of all ironies is he says, my favorite episode is The Body, and he is not in it for a second, I don't think.
Yeah.
And
but it's such a powerful episode.
Well, and for Spike's character, I mean, losing Joyce is almost as impactful as it is for any character on there not named Buffy. So this is the first time I try not to think about that episode at all, but this is the first time in the rewatch that it popped into my head. So I just wanted to throw that out there as we start barreling towards it.
Yeah, there's a line in season 4 when Buffy's buying her textbooks at the college bookstore, and she's like, I can't wait till my mom gets the bill for this. I hope it's a funny aneurysm.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Yeah, it's like a painful little call forward now.
I don't know. Now, the older I get, I don't know if I can handle that episode. I'm going to be a mess. But we don't have to do it yet.
So, we have time. Yep. We have time to get ready for it.
Oh, goodness.
Whew. All right, guys. I think that we have thoroughly discussed this episode. I'm gonna call it that is the complete end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening, especially if you've made it. We're almost at 3 hours. Ooh. And when I add music and stuff, I think we're going to get there. So until next time, I'm Penny.
And I'm Kara.
And I'm Jim.
Keep slaying.